And the region we're talking about now, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Nunavut, Northwest Territories, represent 267 of those 343. So things are about to get extremely, extremely interesting. In Yellowhead, we've got some more results here. We know that the Conservative has a lead of 145 votes. Again, quite early in this region of the country, just one of the 252 polls reporting, Vashi.
And I think do we have some additional results coming in? I think so. Yeah, we're looking over. Oh, now we're into Alberta. Lethbridge, Rachel Thomas is the incumbent there. Public safety critic, among a host of other things for the Conservative Party. She's, at one poll reporting, has a lead, not a surprise. Michelle Rempel-Garner, 6 polls reporting a commanding lead of nearly 1,000 votes for her. I would be shocked if anything different happened in that riding. It's a very safe Conservative seat, and she's a very well-known member of Parliament in Calgary.
In Surrey Moose Mountain, we see here that the Conservative is leading substantially by a vote lead of 407 votes. Again, just one of the 211 polls reporting there. Battleford's Lloydminster, Meadow Lake. Rosemary Falk, the Conservative incumbent, with a lead of 1,500 votes right now. And
Alberta, another one of those places, and we heard this earlier from Tara Nelson, looking to see if there's any movement in some of the ridings the Liberals had hope. Hey, if things are as good as we think they might be, we could swing there. So far, no evidence of that, but obviously very, very early. And Lloydminster, not one of the ones they thought they could pick up, but Lethbridge, perhaps, south of there.
Yeah, Alberta, obviously, as we know, Conservative stronghold, but we'll see if there are any gains that other parties are able to make there. Again, those results just trickling in as the polls have just closed about 7 minutes ago in the bulk of the country. We will be bringing those to you, but this is significant, this batch of results, Vashi.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, basically the path to government has to go through Ontario and Quebec, and the path to a majority.
Some very early results. We're starting to see one. Let's begin with Algonquin, Renfrew, Pembroke. Now, one poll of 262, a lead of only 5, but keep in mind, Cheryl Gallant has held on to the Conservative Party has held on to this riding since 2000. Cheryl Gallant, a long-time MP there. Just a lead of 5, but everyone immediately always looks for flips. You're not seeing a lot, though, in the early results. Let's look at Haldimand, Norfolk, Leslyn Lewis there. That's a sizable lead already, 737, with only 5 of 266 polls reporting, counting very fast there. One more to look at, if we can. David McGinty, one poll, but already a lead of 1,000 over the Conservative. That is,
not surprising.
No, I was about to say it's been a Liberal riding since 1988. So,
and he got in cabinet for the very first time. Was it Justin Trudeau that put him in cabinet? Yeah, Justin Trudeau.
Yes.
Yeah, and then he stayed there with Mark Carney. So he would like to hold on to that and stay in his cabinet job. Ian, you have some results.
Yeah, we have 2 results in Manitoba so far. Winnipeg West, and at this point, really early. I show you this, though, not so much because of the count, but that this is a riding that both the Conservatives and the Liberals feel really good about. And it is a rematch between Marty Morantz, the incumbent MP, and Doug Elson, who used to be the MP for this riding. So we're going to keep a close eye on this through the evening. The other result we're getting right now from Manitoba is Riding Mountain. Huge lead for Dan Mazur. He is the incumbent MP there. He's won the last 2 elections with huge margins. So even though it's early there, this is probably an indication of how Riding Mountain will go, Rosemary.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. Let's just take a look and take a pause for a moment in terms of where we are tonight. As
there's not much. Golmassy started out in the lead, and now the block is up front. I think that's one we're going to watch tonight, certainly. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on Quebec, if you just bear with me. Hello, Quebec. Central Quebec, sure, why not Central Quebec? Yes, Berthe Maskenunge. Right now, Berthe Maskenunge, just one poll reporting. If the Liberals win here, that would be a surprising take. Yves Perron, history teacher, the Bloc Québécois incumbent, is behind by 16 votes, but that's a bit of red on the map there. And we want to look, I think, as well at Les Pays d'Eau, and I'm sorry, Gilles Ducep's going to kill my French, like Les Pays d'Eau. Tim Watchorn is a former mayor of Moran Heights, alpine ski instructor. This would be, it's a new riding, but you'd put it to begin with in the block column. So right now, that's a good get early on for the Liberals there. And just, I guess, for this one, we'll want to take a look at Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. This would be a surprise if this holds up. Richard Martel, the coach, he coached the Chicoutimi Junior A team, and very popular. He holds that riding for the Conservatives, but right now he's in third, and the block perhaps looking for a steal there in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. That's something else. And Lac Saint Jean, let's take a look at that one. There we go. Somebody who is the son of our panel is doing very well. Alexis Brunel de Sepp is expected to win Lac Saint Jean. He is ahead right now. And something of note, he's been doing a lot of work as a parliamentarian on human rights and doing so well on that he was endorsed by none other than Erwin Kotler, the former Liberal Justice Minister, is giving Al Duceppe a thumbs up tonight there. So that's a little bit of taste early on in Quebec. Some things up in the air, some things sort of trending the way they ought to. 40, 29, 12 for the bloc. And we have our first two new Democrats on the board, including, let's find those, because that may be, yes, in Northern Ontario, Kenora Kiwetanung, Eric Malillo is the incumbent. Two Indigenous candidates, Charles Fox and Tanya Cameron, and we'll see how that turns out there. So, two new Democrats finally on the board. Back to you guys.
Okay, I know you just can't stop, David. You just want to keep going across the country. Hey?
We got all these 5 provinces.
I know, it's all happening.
I need to keep going.
It's all happening. We're only waiting now for polls to close in BC and Yukon, so you will see those numbers tick up very quickly. Right now, the Liberals leading or elected in 41. The Conservatives leading or elected in 30. The BQ 12. 31. The NDP 2. All right. Eric Sorensen is keeping an eye on who is gaining and who is losing. Eric.
Donna, the swing meter is telling us a story here. Remember, early in the evening, the Liberals were ahead, the Conservatives were behind, but the swing meter for the Conservatives said they were gaining, and they were making up some ground that were going to get them on their way to that forming government of with a plus 27. Well, at the moment now, they're actually they've had 3 gains, but they're losing in 5 other places, so they're actually at -2 at the moment. They're starting to fall away from that opportunity to form government. The Liberals, on the other hand, their fortune is changing at the moment, and you can see from our swing meter what's happening exactly. They are gaining some ridings. They'll come way over here. This is the swing up for the Liberals. They are gaining some ridings. They're losing a couple, but they are at a net gain of 3. For a majority, they need to get up to 18. Now, if the Liberals can get to 18 or on the night, that 3 would be part way there. What's interesting about these numbers is the ones on the side here. The Liberals have won a couple of ridings against the Conservatives and lost some ridings to Conservatives, but they are picking up 5 so far from the Bloc Québécois. So part of the leading and help that the Liberals are getting right now is coming at the expense of the Bloc Québécois in Quebec, and I think that's an interesting thing the swing meter is telling us, that the Conservatives now are having a little more difficulty on their way to form government. The Liberals getting a bit of a pickup now, perhaps on their way to try and form a majority. This swing meter is doing the job we asked it to, and we're enjoying watching that come in. And it's interesting because it instantly tells us sort of where the Liberals are picking up those votes, and at the moment it's in Quebec and against the BQ.
So are you doing the job we asked you to do?
So far an Atlantic candidate that they did last time when they got a minority.
Yeah.
So if Atlantic Canada is any kind of indication,
Sure.
if.
Chantal?
I'm with Althea. It's a bit early.
Okay. Catherine Cullen's got some results from Quebec.
Some early results. Let's just emphasize that, Rosemary. We're going to check in on some exciting races, starting with Châteauguay-Les Jardins de Nez-Pierreville. We were telling you earlier that this was the riding that was decided by 12 votes in a judicial recount last time around. Patrick O'Hara is back. He told my excellent colleague on the House, Emma Godmere, that he has been thinking about this race every single day since last time around. He's up against a Liberal star candidate in Nathalie Provost. Let's check in Berthier-Masquinongé. The interesting name there that Canadians are going to remember is the NDP candidate, Ruth Ellen Brosseau, known to much of the country as Vegas Girl, because in the time of the Orange Wave in 2011, she went to Vegas during the campaign, but things have changed a lot for Ruth Ellen Brosseau. She lives in the riding now. She is a farmer. They, in fact, raise boar and bison, despite the
just started to flow in this cafe in the heart of Toronto, St. Paul's riding. This is the Conservative Watch Party, where they're hoping there will be a reason to celebrate tonight with what they hope will be the re-election of Don Stewart. That is yet to be seen because numbers are not in yet. But if you look at this riding, this is really where the story of this election began. At a by-election that was called and held in June of last year, some 10 months ago, when Carolyn Bennett, as you mentioned, resigned. In a shocking turn of events, Don Stewart took this riding for the first time to the Tories in 30 years. It was an upset that nobody saw coming, and it sent a loud message to Liberals who held seats across the country and all the way to Parliament Hill, saying if this riding is not safe, what other ridings across the country may be up for grabs. It was widely seen as a referendum on Trudeau's leadership, and what followed was months of Liberal rebellion and ultimately his resignation on January 6th. But tonight, with Trudeau no longer at the helm of this party, and Carney, as we've seen in recent weeks, ahead in the polls, the question for voters here today was, will they come back, if they were traditional Liberals, will they come back to the fold, or will they re-elect the Conservative? The wild cards in this riding are somewhat unique and not unique. Trump is one of the #1 issues here, as we've been hearing right across the country, but also is the war in Gaza, the ongoing war between Israel and Gaza. And that's particular to this riding because 10% of the electorate here are Jewish, and many of them feel more heard by the Conservative camp, and so they're moving to the right on this issue. It is such a tight race, and in recent days we've seen star candidates from other Greater Toronto Area ridings be parachuted in by both parties, trying to shore up support. People just behind me here moments ago said, oh my God, I'm starting to get nervous. The results are coming in. We're waiting to see, certainly at this cafe, whether it will be a cause for celebration tonight. Donna.
Hey, Carolyn Jarvis in the riding of Toronto St. Paul's. Another close race to keep an eye on. And Eric, we're going to look at some ridings in Quebec where it's looking very close as well tonight.
All right.
Chicoutimi-Lafjord.
Bodes well, or how do you define that?
Well, I think if we're flipping a seat in Atlantic Canada, I think as we watch things shift, it might be a bit more narrow of a race than we predicted in Ontario in particular.
Okay, Susan, what do you make of that? Because of course, I think it's safe to say that Liberals, Liberal HQ, was hoping to do very strongly in Atlantic Canada because it would give them the confidence as polls opened up westward. And at this point, Conservatives are holding, potentially gaining. What does that mean for Liberal chances going west?
Well, if you think about where we started out in January, holding is pretty good, and gaining a few seats or only flipping one at this stage of the game is not too bad. I think it's going to be a tight race throughout the night. I think we're going to be here for a while watching returns come in, waiting for advance polls to be counted. Canadians have turned out in record numbers. They're very motivated in this election. I think the country is pretty polarized, though, and I think the NDP vote, how it peels off from some of the seats that may have gone Liberal otherwise, is going to be very interesting, too. I think the Liberals are on track to do what they needed to do, and like I said, it was going to be a blue wave if we'd had an election in January. It's not going to be a blue wave, but I think the mix of red and blue across the country, hopefully we land more red than blue, but we'll see how it all shakes out.
Okay, and you were saying we'll be here watching very late, and we actually have some new video to share with people at home because we're not the only ones watching. Take a look at Liberal leader Mark Carney. He is watching the results very closely as well because this could be a very big night for him if the polls, if the predictions actually do come through for the Liberal Party. And there you have Mark Carney watching results. I'm going to bring in Farouk Karim right now. Farouk, the NDP right now leading in only one riding. Susan predicating the Liberal victory on whether or not the Liberals will be successful peeling away votes for the NDP. How is the party feeling right now?
I'm going to take a drink first.
I hate to disappoint you, that's only water.
It's going to be one of many. If we look at Atlantic, because that's the results we have most, it's 12 points, percentage points less than 2021 for the NDP. It's plus 8% for the Conservative, who are outperforming the polls in Atlantic Canada, so they're doing slightly better. The Liberals are kind of status quo, maybe a bit under. But the NDP is the story, I think, in Atlantic Canada, that collapse of the vote. Not sure the behavior of NDP voters in Atlantic Canada will be the same across the country. It's a specific NDP voters in Atlantic Canada, so that's something to watch for. But yeah, it's disappointing. It's going to be a long night. But silver lining. Since the Liberal, I think, in Atlantic Canada are underperforming a little bit and the Conservatives are overperforming a little bit, I think there's a scenario of a minority government coming to fruition maybe more probabilities of it, and so the seats in BC at the end that the NDP can pick up, 5, 6, 7, 8 seats, could be the balance of power at the end. So there's to watch.
Balance of power, British Columbia. What about Ontario, though?
Ontario, it's going to be hard. Usually we're the NDP is strong in the Northern Ontario. There's one riding that is now no longer there, and Mr. Angus is not reoffering. It was a really, really good candidate for us, so a good MP. So to look for is in the Southwest.
Change at this point in time. Oshawa, this was a Conservative riding. This is home of GM. Colin Carey was the longtime Conservative MP. He's decided not to run. Rhonda Kirkland's running. This is where Pierre Poilievre had one of those monster rallies. I was at that particular one. Lots of people coming down from all over. So Conservatives leading there. I'm trying to take a look. Oh, this should not be Liberal. This is Jamie Schmale, the incumbent. One poll in. It seems unlikely that this is a rural part of Ontario, beautiful part of Ontario. Liberals right there. So we got some stuff happening at the GTA. A lot of grey still. We'll see what transpires.
Oh, so that'll start coloring in very shortly. Thank you, David. We're going to go to Shediac, New Brunswick now, which is in Beausejour, the riding of Dominic LeBlanc, longtime Liberal, who has won in that riding. Suzanne Lapointe is with him. Suzanne.
Hi, I'm here with Dominic, who was just elected again as MP for Beausejour.
The Bloc's got to be worried at this point. All the candidates in this riding, they're not really well known. So what that means is this riding, it's about the parties and the party leaders. It's a real three-way race. Going into it tonight, it was too close to call. Right now, the incumbent Bloc is running third after the Liberals and the Conservatives. It is early yet, but that's not a good sign because this riding is thought to be a very good indicator of what might happen here in Quebec. We'll take a look at the other riding in the Gaspé. We've been talking about that for a while because the results here came in about 30 minutes earlier because it's in an earlier time zone. It's really, really tight. It's been going back and forth between the Bloc and the Liberals. The Bloc has put in a fairly well-known media personality here, Alexis Deschênes, but as we say, it's still really, really close. They're still going back and forth, but overall, especially what's happening in Trois-Rivières and also what's happening in Gaspé, the Bloc cannot be very happy tonight so far. Let's see what's going on in Ottawa now. Patricia?
All right, Ms. Timmy, we want to come back to the Carleton riding, which is such an interesting one in so many ways. Pierre Poilievre has held on to it since 2004, but he has never seen this kind of competition, at least in terms of numbers. 91 candidates in that Carleton riding where the ballot is nearly a meter long. I don't have the actual ballot here, but I printed out the names. It's 3 pages worth. And we don't have any results, as you can see yet. It's all very interesting because not only do we have that long ballot with all the names on there, part of a protest from a group called the Longest Ballot Committee. They're protesting the current first-past-the-post electoral system. So could be some delays because of all those names. But it also had, Carleton did, the highest voter turnout in advance polls anywhere in the country. So there's a lot of ballots to count. To mitigate delays, Elections Canada said they were going to begin counting those ballots cast in the advance polls 6 hours before polls closed. Extra teams being brought in. But as you can see, we do not have any numbers out of that key Carleton riding where Pierre Poilievre's running just yet. We want to go back over to Toronto in the Greater Toronto area and Michelle now.
Thanks, Patricia. Well, the polls have closed here in Toronto and the GTA, and we're starting to get some of the numbers rolling in here in this vote-rich part of the country. I want to draw your attention to Ajax. This is a riding we've been watching. This was Mark Holland's riding, not running for re-election. Jennifer McKelvey running for the Liberals in this riding. She's well-known. She was a councillor. She was interim mayor of Toronto for a while. She's hoping to keep the seat red. Greg Brady is a well-known Canadian radio host. He has a show, Toronto Today. So far, Jennifer McKelvey is leading, but we only got one of the polls reporting. This is certainly one that could be a battle, and we'll be watching. And then Markham Stouffville, interesting so far. This is incumbent Helena Jasek's riding. Right now, we have the Conservative candidate, a police officer who seems to be leading. But again, it's early days. But it is nice to see some results starting to come in, and I think shortly we'll be getting a better sense of if there are winds of change blowing through this part of the country or if people are deciding to stay the course. We'll send it over to Calgary. Tara Nelson.
Thanks very much, Michelle. I'm just looking at the ticker there. We have one NDP seat on the board so far. There should be a few more coming in as we work our way across the prairies and the results start coming in. There's one I want to draw your attention to in Edmonton, and that is Edmonton-Griesbach. So Blake Desjardins won this in 2021. It was a very close race, one for the NDP, with just a 4% margin, 1,500 votes over the incumbent, Kerry Diot, the Conservative incumbent there. He was a two-term MP. He was also a former city councillor. This was a very big upset in 2021. Diot wants it back. He's running again. This could be a very tight race. I am seeing pollsters talk about a group of voters called modest metros, and these are young voters in urban areas, and their biggest concern is their financial future and their financial security. There are a lot of them in Griesbach. So if Desjardins has been able to target those voters and talk to them about what the NDP is going to do to help secure their financial future, he might be able to harness some of that young vote tonight, and that could be what pushes him over the edge. We'll keep an eye on it, but it's going to be a close race. Let's go to Mijong in Vancouver.
Thank you, Tara. 3 more minutes till polls close here in BC. BC may be the last to vote, definitely not the least. There are 43 ridings up for grabs, many too close to call. If the Liberals are on the path to victory, depending on what happens in the rest of the country, it could come down to BC. The Liberals need to hang on to ridings like Vancouver Centre, home to Canada's oldest MP, Hedy Fry. She's running for re-election. Some say she is unbeatable. Hedy Fry's 83, has been serving in the parliament since 1993. She was a rookie then who took down former Prime Minister Kim Campbell. Liberals are also banking on retaining North Vancouver Capilano, which is held by Cabinet Minister Jonathan Wilkinson. And he won handily last time around. We're also watching Burnaby North Seymour, held by Terry Beach. He's been the MP there.
There are some phenomenal new candidates as well. You just saw Billy Moore on the screen. I've worked very closely with him as Premier. He was chief of the Enoch Cree First Nation, and really a significant leader in economic development for First Nations in Western Canada. He, together with Ellis Ross, former chief councillor of the Haisla First Nation out in the BC West Coast Kitimat, if those two are elected, you will see two very strong voices for reconciliation, for First Nations to not just exercise the right to say no in consultation, but to say yes to responsible resource development. So one of the interesting aspects of this campaign has been energy has not been a dominant, but a significant issue, perhaps for the first time ever. And you may end up with some very strong pro-resource development First Nations leaders in the next parliament.
And that may be because of Donald Trump. Really, that's why we're talking about it in a different way than we had before. Okay, thank you for that, Jason Kenney. Polls closing in British Columbia in just over 2 minutes, which will add another 44, British Columbia and the Yukon, another 44 polls to our count, and which will mean that all polls are closed right across the country. That happens at 10 p.m. Eastern. 343 seats, remember, because there has been a map that has been redistributed. 172 is the magic number to get you to a majority government, but we are not able to get anywhere near calling any of those things yet because results are still coming in, and Adrian has some.
Boy, you're not kidding about them coming in fast, Rosie.
I told you.
All right, let's look at some important ridings that we've been talking about all night. Let's start with Peterborough, because this has always been a riding to watch. Historically, a bellwether, bucked the trend in 2021 when Michelle Ferreri, a popular TV anchor, won. But look at that lead, 436 for Emma Harrison, the small business owner, with just 6 of 308 polls reporting. The Liberals will want to hang on to that one. Let's look at the next one here. This is important. Newmarket Aurora. Okay, so this was the second slimmest margin of victory for the Liberals in the GTA in 2021. But look at what is happening. Sandra Kobena, lead of 227, just 2 of 212's polls reporting. But that is...
Do you think it is? I mean, I know from, the Liberal campaign certainly was counting on Quebec to be a part of their story tonight.
All of the map that we've seen that showed anywhere approaching a Liberal majority meant the bloc kind of collapsed by at least 10 seats compared to the last election. Have we seen that yet? It's not totally clear, but it's very interesting to see some of these very key ridings in play when the incumbent's in third place. That says that there's something different in the air.
And we keep talking about this collapse. I mean, just to contextualize it right now, and again, it is early, but a dissolution the Bloc Québécois had 32 seats and now is leading or elected in 13 seats based on the bottom. The polls closing in British Columbia in 2 seconds time. Amanda, this is another region of the country that we're watching particularly closely for the NDP. But you know, when you look at British Columbia, too, it's not as exposed to the U.S.-Canada situation as other parts of the country are. But still, when it comes to softwood lumber and those sectors, that's big in that part.
In some ways, of course, BC has been suffering from tariffs much longer. Yeah, that's right. The lumber tariffs, but now we have tariffs on top of tariffs. It's a super sensitive issue. But it does, of course, stand a little bit apart from the Western sentiment, which has been a little bit divided over how to manage tariffs. You might get more of that national fervor out of BC here. So it will be, I think you've nailed it. The question will be whether you see the weakness in the NDP flowing to the Liberals. Not much hope for the Conservatives there.
Polls are now closed across the country. This is a big moment. We will start to see more results come in, more definitive of a look at who will form government, who will become prime minister. This is a very early indication at this juncture. You're looking at some potential seat changes. I'm using the word potential very deliberately because they're based on preliminary results, but we've got the Liberals picking up 14 seats potentially, and the Conservatives remaining stagnant. The Bloc Québécois at a deficit of 10 seats at this juncture. Again, Omar, that is something that we've got our eyes very closely peeled at because that difference there is largely based in the results in Quebec at this point.
Yeah, which has been a fascinating storyline to observe. The magic number, of course, that Heather's been telling us about is 172. That is the number that's needed for a majority government. So we should, you know, over the next little while get a sense of who will be leading this country and then whether it is a majority or a minority. Let's get straight to Heather.
Between the Conservative and the Liberal incumbent.
And I keep looking up at the polls reporting, and in this case, we're, you know, we're about 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah,
and so Sean Fraser is biting his nails at this point.
All right. David Aiken is looking at we've got some numbers coming in Alberta already.
Yeah, so let's remember we could keep going out west. I mean, there's a lot of action in Quebec, a lot of action in Ontario, but I wanted to tell people what's going on way out west. Right now, if you're looking at that, you see a little dot of orange. Not a little dot, a big dot of orange. It's the riding south of Edmonton, Leduc, Wetaskiwin. There's only 3 polls in. The incumbent is Mike Lake. He's been there since 2004-06. He's been there for a while. This riding, I think the Conservatives would be favored, but right now we put it in the NDP column with Catherine Swampy having a 41-vote lead over the Liberals and just 12 votes, but again, just 3 in. That may change blue. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's very strange. I don't know if the NDP would win there. But take a look at this one. Edmonton Southeast, this is Amarjeet Sohi trying for a comeback to the House of Commons. Sohi was elected in 2015, was in Justin Trudeau's cabinet, then lost, then became the mayor of Edmonton, and now he is in second place right now, but just 1 poll in Edmonton Southeast. But that is definitely a riding that the Liberals are confident they will win, and that plus Edmonton Centre might give them 2 in there. In Calgary right now, we don't have a lot reporting. We got that one right there, Nose Hill, the very popular Michelle Rempel-Garner. Popular in Conservative circles, only Pierre Poilievre is better at raising money than Michelle Rempel-Garner, who right now, with 22 polls in already in Calgary, isn't that something? They're very efficient in Nose Hill, but they don't have any other polls except down in Calgary. Midnapore, Stephanie Kuzy, this is a very conservative part of Calgary. She's leading there. Let's just quickly check in on Winnipeg. Manitoba, there we go. In Winnipeg, we have a potential pickup. The Liberals are definitely targeting the New Democrats in Winnipeg Centre. We only have 1 poll reporting, and right now it's a 15-vote lead for the Liberal over the incumbent, Leah Gazan. So that's just a quick little snapshot very early of Western Canada. There's Nikki Ashton. That'd put 2 on the board. She's held off all challengers over the years. The Liberals, again, are very interested in taking this riding, but right now, Nikki Ashton well ahead. So I'll throw it back to you guys before I get carried away.
Okay. That'll never happen, David. No. All right, thanks so much. We're going to take a quick peek at Mark Carney's riding. He is running in Nepean in the Ottawa region, and he, at this point, it's only 1 poll reporting, but he has a very comfortable lead there. So we'll see how that shapes up.
No, absolutely. The NDP vote, a lot of it, I've been talking to a lot of supporters. A lot of them actually have been coming over to the Liberals, very concerned again about what's taking place with President Trump, making sure that we have a strong showing. The ridings to kind of look out.
Gain a few more seats there.
Okay, listen, Ferg, I'm going to get you to weigh in a second, but right now I want to bring up a results board. This is in Quebec, the riding of Saint-Maurice-Champlain, we can now declare that François-Philippe Champagne has won his riding, only 15 of 296 polls reporting, but again, he has won that riding. The industry minister in the Trudeau government, the finance minister in the brief first Mark Carney government, but he is now declared in the riding of Saint-Maurice-Champlain. Farouk, so that is the Quebec situation. At least one riding in Quebec. But let's talk about British.
He will play a big role, François-Philippe Champagne in Carney government, so as a key player in Quebec. So it's not a surprising one. This is the Jean Chrétien's old riding, right? So it's so that's not a surprise. Yeah. On BC.
Yeah, on British Columbia, New Democrat hopes.
Yeah, half the caucus is from BC. This is, I mean, there's no more Canada past BC. It's the Pacific Ocean. So that's a ball game for the NDP, where they can pick up seats, they can maintain seats. As other provinces, BC's many elections in one. So an election.
Communities, and you certainly are seeing the NDP vote really collapse there. Okay. But then on the north part of the island, you're seeing a lot of orange-blue fights for sure, because working-class voters, mill towns, old mining towns, those kinds of places where those working-class messages really, have an impact. Yeah. But the thing is, if the NDP votes collapse, those ridings are more likely to go Conservative than just about anywhere else in the province, other than kind of northern British Columbia. So it's going to be Canada. I heard somebody say earlier, BC is like a microcosm of the whole country. I think it was Scott Reed, and I think that's going to turn out to be true tonight.
I'm going to keep going. I can hear this music, and I don't know if it's like the Oscars, where they're going to sing us off or not, but we're going to keep going. Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the collapse of the NDP vote. What happened there, and what were the factors? Is this south of the border? Is this the
Anne-Marie, I just have to interrupt you because our decision desk is just coming up with some data. We are about to reach a pivotal moment in this unprecedented campaign. We are about to make a call. Stand by for major declaration from the CTV News decision desk. This will be your next government. We are getting the results momentarily. Seconds from now, it's the time we've all been waiting for. And there you have it. CTV News decision desk declaring a Liberal win. We know that the Liberals will be forming the next government of Canada. The big question right now, Vashi, is will it be a majority or a minority? And this is a live shot you're looking at. I believe it's at the Liberal Party headquarters in Ottawa. I'm assuming there will be some kind of celebration.
They don't know it yet. They don't know it yet, but they will soon.
Advance polls and at a rate we haven't seen.
Well, and really good point, because a lot of folks at home may not realize that the advanced polls are coming in first because they're already there. Lisa, the numbers were looking pretty good for the Conservatives. They're looking not as great now, but it's not terrible, and we're still very early. Do you draw any early conclusions from what we're seeing with these numbers that are now starting to register quite quickly?
I guess what I was saying before we came on air, it's so much information coming in at once. It's hard to divine what the heck's going on. Got 118 ridings to report yet. That's a lot. So you can't really draw much from it, but it's nice to see some of my friends get reelected, I'll say that.
and we have Gilles Duceppe on the panel, whose son is doing very well right now.
Well, it's not officially elected, so we have to wait till it's official.
That's right.
It happened to me in '93. I was sure to be elected, but everything was late. They were calling me I was the one with Jacques Parizeau, because Lucien Bouchard was in Alma, having the meeting in Montreal. So all the journalists will say, come. I said, no, it's not official. Yeah. When it be official, I'll be there. Otherwise, look at what happened to Jean Charest once. He made a victory speech and he lost.
We have a nervous father in front of us. So.
Oh, yes, I agree with that. But you spoke about the advance poll. Also, it depends in each riding from where the polls are coming from.
Exactly.
So sometimes
ridings that can make a big difference.
You don't know if that part is Liberal, that part is Bloc, that part is. So we don't know.
Down for us a bit, Nathan.
So at a local campaign level, if you've got a good campaign, you'll see the polls coming in, and you'll know what each of those polls mean for your campaign.
Wow.
Right? So you're sitting there, and you've got, like, sometimes something will flash on the screen, and you'll say, holy cow, how's that person winning, or how are they losing? Yeah. And it's 5 polls reporting. Yeah. But even more importantly, even when you get to half the polls reporting, who's left, and is your vote coming that's left, or is it not? And that's what you learn as folks that have been through a couple of elections.
Emotional grinder.
Well, this good and bad. Yeah. But this is the opportunity where Canadians can watch this come in. Don't draw any conclusions yet. This is going to go, and then we'll see those iterations. And we'll start to hear from the parties saying those seat numbers are not going to hold, or this is looking like it's going away.
Atlantic Canada must be settled, though, by now.
I don't know. We're seeing some still come in with 30-40% still remaining outstanding. David Aikman will know.
Very close.
Yeah.
That's right.
Fraser,
it's Sean Fraser. It's less than 1%.
And I know a huge element of this is get out the vote and getting the voters out who you know are going to vote for you. I just want to do kind of a quick round robin of what you've heard from your parties about how that get out the vote effort might have gone, how much effort was put into it, starting with you, Seamus.
Well, I think, we're known for it. We got very good at it leading into 2015. We have relied on our GOTV, and this will be, it is well organized on the ground. It is all about making sure you identify your vote. I didn't have a full appreciation for it as a journalist until I got into politics in 2014, 2015. It is about identifying that vote, going around, knocking on doors, figuring out who's a Liberal, who will vote as a Liberal, and then making sure they vote. And it's a big day.
So my call around today was, what are the numbers like in what Seamus just talked about?
Okay,
and that's what's important.
We have to wrap right now, but we will get your take on it. I promise, Jill. At least when we come back. We're all looking forward to the end of those many text messages about whether you're going to vote for someone, I think.
All right, panel. Mercedes, thanks so much. And we do have some breaking news now. Global News is ready to make a call. Global News is now projecting a Liberal government. It's a Liberal government. We're not saying majority or minority, but Global News is projecting that the Conservatives can't win enough seats at this point to form a government.
Yeah.
So we'll have, Eric, did you have thoughts on that?
Well, what they're saying is they can't catch up to where the Liberals are. At the moment, the Liberals are ahead by, it looks like, 39.
There, that's not a huge one there. Shefford, though, this is more votes have been counted. They have a lead of just around 900 votes over Andréane Larouche of the Bloc. So this would be a pickup from the Bloc. And we actually see a number of these kinds of ridings across the province. This is one we're going to be watching all night, so I wanted to take a look at it. Berthier-Masquinongé, Ruth Ellen Brousseau trying to make that comeback. The candidate who had spent part of the campaign in 2011 in Las Vegas made herself into quite a good constituency MP. We'll see what's going to happen in that riding. And if we take another look around where things are in and around Montreal, you can see that in these two ridings in the Rive Nord, these are where the Liberals are leading in Thérèse de Blainville. Very small margin right now, but it was a key target for the Liberals. And in Rivière-des-Mille-Îles, again, it's just very few votes have been counted there. But these are two ridings that the Liberals were targeting in the Montreal area. So we'll see if we're going to have more of those Bloc ridings flip over to the Liberals in the greater Montreal area. Now, if we go to Ontario, and we'll go to, why don't we start in Eastern Ontario? Pretty much what we would have expected in Ottawa, in Gatineau, that the Liberals are doing well there, winning in Prescott-Russell-Cumberland. But here's an interesting one, Bay of Quinte. This is a riding that the Liberals would be targeting. They won it in 2015. Right now, Chris Mallette is ahead of Ryan Williams by a very few amount of votes, but it is certainly going to be one to watch. And how about this one, Bellwether, Peterborough? Now, we have actually a lot of votes counted here. We've got 10 boxes. And we've got Emma Harrison leading Michelle Ferreri by, about 800 votes. And this is a bellwether riding. Often the winner of this, if they win it, if the Liberals have won it, they get a majority. If in the past that is often the case. If the Conservatives do, then the Liberals might not be able to win it. If we go to the Greater Toronto Area, there's a bit of blue here. There's a bit of extra blue that we might not have expected. Some of them we'll have to wait and see. You can look at a riding like Etobicoke North. This is Doug Ford's riding. It's Ford Nation. It's also one of the safest Liberal ridings in all of Toronto. It's Kirsty Duncan who would win this by huge margins. Right now, it's John Zuricelli is the Liberal candidate very early on, but you can see that the Conservatives have the edge there. That's so far, it's not a bad map for the Conservatives in the GTA, but a lot of these are very, very early on. How about Oakville East? It's a 42-vote tie. So there's still lots of close ridings to watch. Across the province and across the country. Okay, still lots of close ridings, and I'm sorry to jump in, Eric, but I do have a declaration to make there. CPAC relies on the Canadian press numbers to make declarations. Take a look at what we're hearing from the Canadian press right now. They are at this moment in time
punctuated with a little bit of blue right now. The latest numbers I had is that the Liberals were at 56 seats, and they're up 2 seats in Ontario. They're now at 63 seats in Ontario. We had said they needed to be at 80, so they're tracking towards that, because a lot of these seats that will fill in over the course of the night, history and polling tells us that these will go Liberal. Now, let's go into Manitoba. The Liberals are currently sitting at 4 seats. We had suggested they would want to get 6 here to build up to a total of 10 on the prairies to be at a majority level. They have 1, obviously, in the north right now, where they're leading in the NDP-held riding of Churchill. And they've got a couple of 3 seats right now in Winnipeg, and these are also seats where the Liberals will be competitive once we get more results throughout the night. So there is still upward potential for the Liberals as they try to get to that magic number of 172. And this helps right here. This is Desnethne Misnipi Churchill River. That's a Liberal leading in Saskatchewan. Do not adjust your set. That's a real thing. It's not officially projected elected yet, but this is a chance for the Liberals to break through in Saskatchewan for the first time since Ralph Goodale was a member of Parliament. And here in Alberta, you see a lot of blue. This is where a lot of the Conservative seats are coming from. But you got to zoom in on Calgary, where the Liberals are leading right now in Calgary Centre, and you got to zoom in on Edmonton. These are going to be the areas where the Liberals and the New Democrats are going to be in a battle. Those 2 seats that I just showed, those would be pickups right now for the Liberals if those results hold. So, Rosie, you can see a roughly even performance in the Atlantic with the potential of it to get back to where it was and maybe grow a little bit. A good early start in Quebec, decent numbers in Ontario, presence in the prairies. Still too early to say exactly what's going to happen in British Columbia. But, you know, BC often complains about being the empty net goal on election night. They might be the winner tonight when the results come in there.
Okay, and one of the reasons we have yet to call what kind of government Canada will have is because there are 100 ridings where the vote margin is about 100 votes. And that is simply too close to call for us and for the decision desk. And so we're going to wait to be sure before we get to that point. And that's partly why, as David said, British Columbia could be awfully important here tonight. You're always important, British Columbia, but even more important in terms of forming government for Mark Carney to become now, who is Prime Minister right now, but stays Prime Minister, the 24th Prime Minister, and now, for sure, won't have any problems beating Charles Tupper's record of being Prime Minister for only 68 days. He's going to hang in there a little bit longer, apparently. Ashley Burke is at Liberal headquarters, where they are dealing with the news and waiting for more news in terms of what kind of government they're going to have for this 4th mandate, Ashley.
You heard the reaction here in the room, Rosie. People erupted. They were cheering. They were excited. Just moments before that, we were talking about
François-Philippe Champagne elected pretty easily, pretty handily, beating his Conservative rival. And the NDP is last behind the Conservatives and the Bloc.
Constance Stanstead, alors Marianne Dandurand devant la
Constance Stanstead, Marianne Dandurand, who beats Nathalie Bess for the Bloc. The Liberals were counting on this. Look at the difference, 5,815 to 2,619. And once again, the NDP is last, 4th. That's heartbreaking as well. So I think it gives us a good idea, a good picture of the picture in Quebec. And the last board... no, that was the last one. Okay, Michael, let's look at Montreal now. We were talking about this earlier. Montreal is an urban vote. It's important. It's generally red, Liberal. Will Aleksandra Boulris hold on to his seat in Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie? Eric, let's look at Montreal. There are 2 blue ridings. Let's look at them. I don't think that will remain Conservative. Laurier Sainte-Marie, Stephen Guilbeault's riding. 11 votes have been counted so far. I don't think it will remain blue. Mount Royal, that's perhaps more interesting. The Conservatives hope to win this type of riding. Anthony Housefather, the outgoing member, we'll see if it remains blue. That's surprising. Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie, Aleksandra Boulris is now ahead. Just 3 boxes have been counted so far. And you can see that he has a lead of a couple of votes over Jean-Sébastien Vallée, but it's something we'll keep an eye on. So that's interesting. Well, it's too difficult to say But in the southern suburbs and northern suburbs, let's look at what's going on there, because these are ridings where the race is very, very tight between the Bloc and the Liberals. What's happening? Well, let's look at La Pairie Tataken. Now, this is a target for the Liberals. Alain Terriat for the Bloc is second, is behind. And now if we look at Longueuil, Charlemagne. This was won by the Liberals last time, but Longueuil, Saint-Hubert. That's a target for the Liberals once again. Nathalie Joseph is ahead of Denis Trudel, the outgoing MP for the Bloc. And the North Shore, Terrebonne now, the Liberals are behind the Bloc by a few hundred votes. And Thérèse de Blainville here, that's a target for the Liberals. They're in the lead, the Liberals in the lead there. Rivière de Mille-Îles, once again, not many boxes counted, just 3. So what we're seeing is on the South Shore, we're seeing possible gains for the Liberals. Thanks, Eric.
You know what, Eric, stand by there. I'm going to ask the control room to get us the national leading elected. But going back quickly to you, Eric, at the board, can you call up Mount Royal again? Just take a look at that riding result for us right now. Sure. If we can go into Mount Royal, just the interesting story, the fact that Erwin Kotler, the former Justice Minister for the Liberals, is in support of Anthony Housefather, but at the same time his wife was supporting the Conservative candidate, which I interviewed Mr. Kotler about, and it was one of those, Lucy, you have explaining to do. So a bit of the split there. But Eric, thank you for that. Let's bring in the national leading and elected board right now for how things are breaking down across the country. Liberals elected in 26 ridings, leading in 113. Conservatives at 20 elected, leading in 88. Cole, I'm going to bring you in at this point as the declaration has been made of a Liberal government. Where does this leave the Conservative campaign? Where are they looking to essentially hold off a Liberal majority at this point?
So we'll see how the results play out in the prairies and in Western Canada in particular. I'll be looking to see if there are Liberal gains in Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg. If it's a blue shutout there, then maybe they can sort of boost up their own numbers and tamp down any Liberal gains across the prairies. We'll see how the rest of Ontario plays out, and then finally at the end, seeing if we can maintain things, gain a few seats in BC, and see if we can get above the 2021 results.
Yeah, and again, a Liberal government now declared, waiting to see if it's a majority or a minority. You talk about the West, you reference Ontario very quickly, but I'm going to ask you to dig down, because of course the battleground is the 905. How are Conservatives feeling about that race right now?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that shifted throughout the election. Obviously, Pierre spent a lot of time in the GTA, Brampton, Mississauga, a lot of smaller towns, a lot of efforts put toward the rallies in particular to try to switch things and shift things over. But the problem with Ontario, even if the gap narrowed significantly throughout the process of the election, the Liberals still maintained, a 5 to 9, 10-point lead throughout the election that might have been too hard to close the gap on. So we'll see what we end up with at the end of the night.
Okay, Susan, let's bring you into the conversation right now. Obviously, Liberals feeling good, the fact that it's been declared a government for the party. How do you feel right now about the chances of making that into a majority for the government?
Hopeful. Hopeful. I mean, we always knew it was going to be tight. I'd like to congratulate the Liberals and congratulate all the parties that we have worked hard together against. I mean, it's a Democrat.
Going to be, but I think in he comes.
One thing we do know is that he will not be Prime Minister. Let's go to Mercedes Stevenson and the political panel. Mercedes.
Thanks, Donna. Well, our first opportunity to react to that call of a Liberal government. Lisa, I want to start with you this time. Of course, I'm going to pick on the Conservative. But I don't think this is a huge surprise. I heard that the leader was making calls today warning people that this could be a tough night. But is this what was expected?
I guess we really didn't know at the end of the day, but internal polling is going to show you what they have. So if he was making those phone calls, good on him. I think we have a lot to be proud of in Atlantic Canada, which is a bit of a surprise. I thought we weren't going to do as well there. And let's see how the rest of Ontario rolls. It's a real mixed bag, though, Mercedes. I have to say, some folks I expected to win aren't, and some people I thought were not going to win are. So who knows what the electorate's thinking out there, but it'll all be revealed soon.
the NDP crushed tonight. What do you make of that performance?
Well, not crushed yet. Give us a minute.
It's not looking great.
It's a different. I'm not going to repeat that. We were expecting a difficult night. Yeah. We have, I guess, the lament. For those of us that have been involved, we know a bunch of these candidates, and we know the quality of some of the people, through no fault of their own, are not going to be successful tonight. And this is the life of politics. This happens. I lament it more for Canadians because sometimes you see somebody lose who doesn't really deserve to. They did a great job as an MP. They were wonderful at their thing, but this is the age that we live in, and this is the election that we live in. I just wouldn't get it wrong in terms of interpreting what comes out of tonight. Why, right? Why did we talked about this a bit tonight? This context of this election will be for this time. It won't be for the next time. We're not, hopefully, we're not dealing with a president trying to take over the country and destroy our economy. Then we'll see what's next. And I think some of the issues will resonate, but let's watch what happens next. And the NDP were able to accomplish an enormous amount with just 24 MPs. I'm hoping they're able to return enough, and we don't know about Liberal majority minority yet.
Right.
That is going to be enormously consequential for everybody who's considering what happens next.
And one of the factors I want to come back to, but flagging it, so this is just me planting the flag. We're going to come back to it in the future. What happens to the future of both of your leaders in light of what has happened tonight? But Seamus, Liberal government, is Donald Trump basically the best thing that's ever happened to the Liberal Party?
Donald Trump is working on behalf?
Yeah, our change of leader has already happened, clearly, and it did have a huge effect. I mean, I said before, you talked about expectations going into this election. I mean, going into it right now, we were hoping for a Liberal government. It's still a possibility, perhaps, of a majority government. But think of where we were just 2-3 months ago. This is an extraordinary switch of political fortunes, and still, I think, a hugely unpredictable campaign. We'll see where it goes. A lot of those seats, Lisa and I know a lot of people in Atlantic, Canada, appear to be very local, and I'm going to be looking forward to seeing where a lot of those land, as the numbers continue to come in. Clearly, this is a good night for the Liberal Party, not one that 3 months ago we would have expected, one that we, in the past month and a half, 2 months, we've been preparing for.
Sheila, I want to ask you, we're seeing the block at, I'm looking at the screen here, 23 right now, so I mean, you're projecting 25, so pretty close to that. That puts the bloc in a position, if this is a minority government, to potentially back.
We don't know yet if it will be a monetary government. If it is, they could play, it depends also how many members the NDP will have. So I would say that both the Liberals and the Republicans have the same color. They're both red.
So should I take that as the bloc may not be backing up?
More seriously, I think there's two important dates to come with the coming negotiations. The election in a year and a half in the States, all the Congress, and 1/3 of the Senate, and 1/3 of the governors. That'd be important. And an election in Quebec also within a year and a half or two, with 22. That'd be important also. And in politics, things change a lot. I do remember in 1993, Jean Charest used to say half of his caucus was composed of women.
Yeah.
They were too.
It was our best showing.
That's it. And look what happened after. The Liberals were 30 in 2011. We were 4. Quite a difference today.
Seamus is describing it well. The need to be humble. And I say this with all seriousness of what comes next for the Liberals. They just went through a near-death experience. They, as you say, 3 months ago, it was hard to imagine this kind of scenario. 2 things changed. Mr. Trudeau leaves, Mr. Trump comes in. Well, we have a different context. But one of the things that hurt, I believe, the last Liberal government was any notions of entitlement or smugness or not listening, and in particular, as we watch the results come in from Western Canada, I deeply, sincerely say, listening to Western Canada in meaningful ways, talking about the things that we've always talked about, are going to be really important for this government, minority or majority, maybe even more important if majority.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to get into, we'll find out, minority, majority. We'll change things radically either way.
The reaction of all the provinces after those negotiations.
Yes. And those negotiations
of BC,
have yet
Western Canada, Ontario, Quebec, and the Maritimes. It could make a hell of a debate, I would say, in Canada, saying we won or not, or they prefer a certain province. They forgot to protect things that we wanted them to protect, and could
Quebec,
be an important debate.
No doubt a big role. And Donna, of course, the questions about how this goes for Mr. Carney going forward. He's had a relatively short time as Prime Minister where it's been an improvement over Mr. Trudeau. If this is a minority government and he's not able to negotiate better than Mr. Trudeau, Liberal fortunes could be a big question mark. But it's a big night for the Liberals tonight, for sure, after what they've been through, to be pulling off any kind of a government.
Okay, Mercedes, thank you. Yes, it is a Liberal win tonight. Mark Carney will be the Prime Minister. This is the first time he'll be elected to public office. He looks like he's handily winning his seat in Ottawa. Eric, let's take a look at the popular vote.
Well, the Liberals are up by about 8 points at the moment. You would expect to see that. I think as these numbers add up on the screen below, is that me?
Yeah, it's you. I'll turn that off.
We each had one of those tonight, right?
You did. You had two, though.
No, but that one didn't happen on air. That doesn't count. Sorry. The Liberals over the Conservatives where they are right now.
Let's have a look at someone who is having a difficult night, but at least his own riding is secure. That's Yves-François Blanchet in the riding of Belleuil-Chambly. He has won handily in that riding, but he is probably not enjoying the evening so far, given where things are tracking for the Bloc. Remember, at last vote, the Bloc Québécois had 35 seats, and right now they're tracking towards 23. We'll continue to watch some of those numbers because, as we've told you, the vote is changing. It is close still in many, many ridings across the country, and that is why we are waiting to tell you whether you have a minority or majority government. Rafi Boudjikanian, I can see you there. Yves-François Blanchet has been elected. We have the decision desk has projected him elected, but not a strong evening so far for the Bloc Québécois. What are you hearing?
It is not, and you'll forgive me. I was just turning around.
Really losing. Loss, yes, really losing in that riding of Beauce in Quebec. Let's get to Sandy Ronaldo, who's been really gauging the sentiment of the people. Sandy, over to you.
Oh, Omar, let me tell you, my guests have been itching to have an opportunity to say what's on their mind. But the word that keeps coming up again and again is polarization. So talk to me, John.
Well, I mean, our shows and shows across the country tomorrow are going to be where people start to vent, I think, and maybe where Liberals want to brag. I mean, the problem with the two political parties and their followers and voters, those who are entrenched, is both of the parties think the other one is an existential threat when in government. So Conservatives are going to be very angry, and also angry about the fact that, I mean, they had the Liberals on the ropes, and they've already put up with 10 years of the Liberals, so it's going to drive them crazy. And one last aspect in all of this is, as you know, Bill, probably from your texts and calls on my show, a cohort of Liberals these days, or a cohort of Conservatives, like to own the libs, and tonight they've been denied the chance to do so.
I know that you're eager to say something, Bill. Don't hold back.
Well, you just look at those numbers, and what you see is Canada becoming a two-party country.
But haven't we always been that way?
Well, no, I don't think to the degree we're seeing right now with the NDP collapsing like that. So, yeah, people are going to be divided. Conservatives, we're already hearing from our listeners, I'm sure you are as well, sort of that core group that tries to reach out to you right away. And so far, Conservatives are angry with people who voted Liberal. But I don't think that anger will last long. I think it will turn internally pretty quickly. And they're going to say, what happened here? How did we have this in our grasp, change that we've wanted for so long, and it's now gone? And they're going to start to ask questions of their party. The only way that doesn't become really ugly is if the Conservatives can keep the Liberals to a minority. Then I think you'll see they'll calm down, they'll accept that as reality and say, we live to fight another day. We can't have our country divided right now, though. We need to be focused on the real enemy to our country right now is in Washington. That's the real threat. We need to work together to fight that threat. And so those numbers don't show that so far.
But how do you begin to heal, right? Given the fact that we've got such a fractured nation in terms of, just look at those numbers again. You know, if it ends up being, we're waiting to see whether minority or majority, but how do you, as the new leader of this country, reach out to those people who didn't vote for you?
I don't think you can.
No.
I think our country is becoming more like the United States. We hear it every day on our shows that people who are conservative are really conservative. There's that wing of the party where people, they bought into Donald Trump. they like him, and they believe that elections can be fixed and that pollsters lie to you and that the media is lying to you all of the time. That exists in our country, and I think it's only going to grow as a result of this.
Yeah.
Unless the Liberals get a strong majority.
Point in the evening, like they're going to get better than that.
Okay, some other good news for the Liberals at this hour. Let me show you who has just been elected as a Member of Parliament for the very first time, and that is Mark Carney, Canada's Prime Minister. This is his first time.
I don't know if it's going to be a minority government or a majority government. There's a lot of questions still in the air.
We're right sort of where Mr. Blanchet sort of seemed to prepare us to be, and he kept on saying it was important to have the balance of power in a minority government. That's what you're hoping for at this point?
Exactly. The position at Bloc Québécois that we put forward during mostly the end of the campaign was, would we rather want to ask and hope for the fair share of the gains, or would we prefer to be able to demand and obtain? And this is the sense of this balance of power, what it would provide for the people of Quebec.
Yeah. It's interesting. We kept on hearing anecdotally about people saying that they were long-time Bloc Québécois voters, but in this election, because of Donald Trump, they were maybe going another way, Liberal. I went out in Terrebonne last week and had no trouble finding people who said exactly that to me. I'm wondering, what was it like to be out there on the hustings with Donald Trump?
At the moment, it was super difficult. Honestly, people were thinking, I'm afraid of Trump, and at this moment, the Liberal Party was like a safe asset, and some people were also afraid of other things. Some people were afraid of Poilevre. Some people were afraid of health care, and it was difficult early in the campaign to sort of put ourselves into this window, but Yves-François Blanchet really kept his stance in this moment and really put forward this message that we have the advantage of focusing for the people of Quebec, for our values, for our industries. And then I would say in the middle of the campaign, this window sort of opened up, and I feel that tonight we get the results of this special moment where we kind of had a window of opportunity to put forward that message.
I should ask you, there has been some criticism, I'm sure you're aware, by Côté, for example, of the place or the lack of space that the sovereignty, the drive for separation took in this election. I'm wondering, is it a bit of a low point at the moment in Quebec? How do you feel about that?
So, Mike, if I wouldn't have checked the numbers, I would have think so. But I looked at the numbers at the same time, Léger poll, and I dug into the numbers, and I saw that at the same time that we were talking about this Canadian patriotism, we saw the numbers in will of independence increase up to 40%, which was something I had never seen before. And besides, what I feel is that the independence movement is still well alive, and a whole generation never had to answer this question. So I think it's still there, but it was not put up front.
One of the things Mr. Blanchet has also said is that he doesn't want this to happen again. And there's going to be a Quebec provincial election next year, probably next year.
To be a minority or majority government, and you, looking at the numbers at first blush, believe we are headed towards a Liberal majority.
Well, yeah, because it's going to be tight now. I don't want to make it's all under, the way I projected this election. In order to get a minority government, the Bloc needs to be at least above 30 seats, and the NDP needs to be around 10 to 12 at least, right? So to give a chance to a minority government. Right now, I'm not seeing that, but although Lower Mainland has not come in yet, so we'll see about that. For the Bloc, I'm not sure if there's still some seats that haven't not reported yet, but if everything has reported, they're only leading in 21, that's lower than their number that they had starting at 32, I believe. And so under that number, it looks good for the Liberal to squeak out the majority.
Yeah, squeak out the majority, and 172 is the magic number that we're watching for, whether or not it is a majority. Susan, how are you feeling at this moment in time looking at the numbers?
Well, feeling better. A couple interesting seats in Quebec. La Salle-et-Mort, that was the seat that was David Lamette's before the Bloc won it in the by-election. The Liberals are leading in that one, so that could be very interesting if we take that back. And Abitibi, Mandy Galmasti, the former Grand Chief of the Cree, That was a bloc riding before that, and before that it was Romeo Saganash's riding, an NDP riding, and so that's looking potentially like it could go Liberal, and that's an interesting one as well. So we'll have some interesting First Nations voices in the House of Commons if that particular seat holds. So feeling good about that. Again, continue to watch 9:05. I'm watching bright bits of red. It's early reporting, but Stephen Fuhr in Kelowna was a Liberal seat in 2015. He lost subsequently, and there has been some riding redistribution. I was talking to some people in Kelowna this week.
5 and the NDP at 7. What does that add up to? 172. So we may be in a situation that one of the closest things we'll be watching tonight is, can the Liberals get to a majority? For the moment, they're at 10. As we said before, they need to pick up 18, sorry, I went too far to show that, 18. They're picking up a lot of those from the Bloc Québécois, 13 so far. They've picked up 14 on the Conservatives, or are picking up 14, but they've also lost 18 of the Conservatives. So most of their pickups are coming at the expense of the Bloc Québécois. At the moment, you just saw the numbers change. They're at 13. They need to get to 18 pickups to get a majority. So they're looking like they might, Donna, be in the 160s, high 160s, mid 160s. The NDP probably has a chance to win a few more ridings. They, of course, let's not forget, they're sorely looking at that number to 7 and hoping, can we find 5 more to get to official party status. But they, whether or not they get there, they may still end up with the balance of power. The Bloc Québécois clearly would have the balance of power. If there were a minority government, you could call that right now, the BQ will. But it doesn't mean the Liberals won't have the numbers close to 172. And the NDP could just put them up to that.
Yeah, to form a government.
That's still possible.
Which is exactly what we had before.
Yes, just a slightly different balance.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Naheed Nenshi, leader of the NDP in Alberta, former mayor of Calgary. Thanks so much for taking time with us. Nice to talk to you again.
Thanks so much, Donna. You know, the last election, I was on the panel with y'all.
Oh, I know.
So now I guess I'm
18% in 2021. It's down to 2.7%. And it seems to be going to both the Conservatives and the Liberals. The Liberals right now in the lead, the incumbent in second place. Let's take a look at Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna. There, the NDP support has gone from 18.9 percentage points to 5.5. Now, super early, but still interesting to note and to keep an eye on. And now Richmond East Steveston, this is another riding that kind of shows what's happened to the NDP support. It's gone from 19% in 2021 to 3.7%. Both the Liberals and Conservatives up. It looks like the Conservatives in Richmond East Steveston might be benefiting more from that drop in NDP support than the Liberals are. But throughout British Columbia, we said this hours ago. I mean, maybe it was yesterday. I'm not sure. But anyway, hours ago.
We haven't been here since yesterday, to be fair.
That way,
yeah,
though.
I know.
Anyway, what would happen to NDP support? Would it drop? It seems to be doing that in British Columbia and in a province where the Liberals and Conservatives are so competitive in so many ridings. Who will benefit the most from that? Still very much in flux, but they both seem to be benefiting.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so let's get another part of that story, and that's to look at whether a majority is still possible here as we wait to make a firm call on what kind of government Canada has chosen. So here you go again. This is back to the House of Commons. All those red seats there, leading and elected. So that gets you up to 157. Now we're going to add incumbents to come. Those are the pink seats. That is 9. So they need to hold the 157 they have, gain 9, and they are still under 6, not quite reaching a majority so far with those numbers. But let me give you another little piece of information that is relevant as we think about whether this is going to be a majority government, and that is
British Columbia. Eric, what are you finding so far?
So it is early. We are seeing a lot of red in the interior, which is a little bit of an unexpected development. Kelowna, though, is not an unexpected one. We did see that the Liberals won this back in 2015. Stephen Fuhr, as was mentioned, is back on the ballot, and he is leading. It is a small lead, but he is leading right now against the Conservative incumbent, Tracy Gray. But next door, in Okanagan Lake, West South Kelowna, well, it's just a few ballots, so we don't need to pay too much attention to that. And in Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay, though, the Liberals are actually leading, and there's a lot of votes being counted. There's a 300-vote lead here for Gloria Morgan of the Liberals. This is quite unexpected. The NDP's incumbent was not running for re-election, and as we've seen in a lot of other places, the NDP vote is tanking. And here, it does seem like it didn't go to the Conservatives. It is going to the Liberals right now. So this is an interesting one. Maybe this could be some of those advance polls that we know are going to be pretty favorable to the Liberals. If they picked up this seat in the interior, that would be a bit of a shock. Now, if we go to the metro area, still actually waiting for a lot of results here. And this is maybe where that Liberal majority-minority could play out, because if you look at last time, there was quite a lot of red. And there was a little bit of orange, and that orange is going to be tough, I think, for the New Democrats to hold. So we're waiting for some of those results to come in. We can take a look at some of them. Vancouver Kingsway, Don Davies is leading, though it isn't a huge margin right now, and there's not a lot of votes counted in Vancouver Kingsway. What about Vancouver East? Jenny Kwan is behind by 10 votes, but again, only a few votes have been counted. And this would be a bit of a surprise, and I'm expecting, yes, that Hetty Fry, who has been there since 1993, unlikely to be taken down tonight, but right now she is trailing. That's probably an unfamiliar feeling for her.
Yeah, well, we're watching that closely. Eric, thank you. Eric Renier at the results board for us. Listen, as we keep an eye on the bottom line, again, repeating, Canadian Press, which is our declaration team, they have declared a Liberal government, but we're also keeping an eye on where the leaders are running right now. We have 2 riding results to share with you, beginning with the riding of Carleton. This is in the capital region.
Normally vote Socialist and NDP, so it's surprising to me that a 4% result for the NDP is shocking. So obviously we'll see a new NDP leader, and that obviously would make a difference in the future, but not tonight.
Sure, you're talking about leadership, but you're focusing on the NDP leader. Let's talk about Pierre Poilievre as a leader. What was it about his leadership run in this campaign that people said, I'm choosing differently?
Well, just remember, he actually grew the base of the Conservative Party. He tonight delivered a vote that won us the majority under Stephen Harper. He's grown the base of the party. The progressive vote has completely gone to the Liberals, and the NDP completely collapsed. I do think that Jagmeet Singh has to take some responsibility for that. He had an opportunity to differentiate himself from the Liberals, and he wasn't able to.
Harjit, I'm going to let you jump in, but I wanted to say something that I think is really interesting, is that this became a fight about who could stand up to Donald Trump. But do you think any of the leaders imagined that we were going to have what you were talking about now, Rana, which is we've got to look at how do we unify a country, let alone fight what's coming from south of the border? Harjit, I'm going to let you jump in.
That's that point. I mean, Canadians were united on a message of rejection of Trump, right? That's what this election was largely about. Now they're picking a leader who they felt that can best lead them to deal with Trump. And we can't, I mean, at the end of the day, we can't blame the fortunes of one party towards the downfall of another, right? At the end of the day, now it's everybody needs to unite, and that I think is very important. I personally think the divide is not going to be as significant with Mark Carney's, not only that, as James mentioned to me about, reminding me that Mark Carney's from Edmonton.
Yeah.
I think also British
secure it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think he would not be the first party leader who is trying to win an election, going all over the country, and the stakes are so high, and the leader's presence, the leader's time, is one of the most important things a political party has in a campaign. And so as the leader's going out and trying to help all of the other candidates win their seats, you know, it's hard to be in 2 places at once. Also, Bruce Fanjoy for the Liberals has been working for about 2 years to try to win this riding. And I mean, I can remember seeing interviews with him where people are basically like, are you crazy? You're never going to win. This is, you know, why even bother? But now the closeness of the race is unbelievable, right? Yeah. And so, and I think this riding was the one in the whole country that had the highest advanced poll turnout, which I think the Liberals were reading as probably a pretty good day for them.
It also had that crazy ballot, though, with 91 people on it, and that's the part that I'm worried. I'm just looking, there's only just a few people reporting, but there's almost 8 other people who have votes, and if this comes down to something really tight between Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Fanjoy, and all these votes have been peeled off by this ridiculous 91-person list ballot, I think that's exceptionally disappointing, and I think that's been a bit of an abuse of democracy. Obviously, everybody's vote counts, but it is probably not the intended result that the people in the riding actually wanted because of this.
Oui, Élections Canada disait que ça allait prendre beaucoup de temps avant d'avoir les
Election
résultats
Canada said
finaux.
it would take a long time to get the final results. So what we have is very, very fragmented.
they started doing the count very early, I think, right? Yeah, because these are very, very long ballots.
I live in that riding. The ballot was 2 feet long, and a lot of people were struggling to unfold it, let alone read all 90 names, because you really had to search it through.
We saw this morning when Mr. Poilievre went to vote. The ballot looked like a book when he was putting in it for the picture.
Yeah.
Like it looked so big.
Well, in fact, just to reenact a little bit, the ballots were so large that they had to keep stuffing them into the box because they occupy so much more space. So we'll see how late that actually goes to be declared. But right now, as we said, Bruce Vanjoy, the Liberal leading in the riding of Carleton. But let's bring up right now the riding of Nepean one more time, because we can share with you that Mark Carney has been elected in Nepean. So that is the first time elected as a member of Parliament. Again, this is the riding right beside Pierre Poilievre's riding in Carleton. We'll keep watching what's taking place in Carleton. But Mr. Carney, the Liberal leader, not only right now presiding over a Liberal win as declared by the Canadian press, he has now secured his seat in the riding of Nepean. So, you know, I'm wondering if we could bring in
of things. Also on Vancouver Island, Cowichan, Malahat, Langford, one of the fastest growing ridings in terms of population in the country. I've talked to Alistair McGregor about that a few times. He's the incumbent, leading by a little bit over the Conservatives right now. 8 polls reporting there. Let's take a look, a little closer look at Vancouver right now. We have, these are all NDP seats right in the heart. And in fact, let's take a look at Vancouver, Fraser View, South Burnaby. It's a new riding. The former mayor, Gregor Robertson, right now, with just 1 poll in, is leading in Vancouver, Fraser View. We have no results in Burnaby Central. You noted we've declared Mark Carney elected. No results right now in Burnaby Central. That's Jagmeet Singh's riding. Down south, New Westminster, Burnaby, Mallardville, Peter Julian is the incumbent. He's won 7 times, but he's, after 2 polls in, he's in 3rd place right now. And Don Davies is the lone New Democrat that is leading right now in downtown Vancouver. Don Davies, with 4 polls in, is up at 43%. So that's our first look, some potential change. This would be a big change if this holds. South Surrey White Rock, the Liberals with 2 polls right now are leading on the incumbent Conservative Carrie Lynn Finlay. The Liberals, I'm trying to think if they've ever won South Surrey White Rock. If they have, it's been a long, long time. That will be something. Cloverdale, Langley City, and we'll send back to you.
David, thank you. Lots of votes still to be counted out there in BC. Let's go to Neetu Garcha, who is in Burnaby at the headquarters of the NDP. And Neetu, at this point, we have on, by our count, the NDP leading or elected in 9 seats.
NDP translating to a big decrease in seats. Even though the Bloc sees a decrease as well, their significance in the House of Commons just went up by a whole lot.
And so the question now for the Liberals is, you know, who will be their dance partner? They'll obviously have to reach across the aisle on major initiatives. And this is, you know, Canadians are basically saying, obviously, the dominant issue is Donald Trump. Make it, fix it. You know, fix the situation, show us that you can. And everybody who's here today, maybe we'll see you very soon. So please clear your schedules. Right? The minority situation, of course, you know, it's a very interesting development.
Tom, don't laugh. You're going to be back here maybe in a few months.
Tom's ready to go.
Right now, but a very narrow lead. We're talking about only 4 votes, with 58 riding polls reporting in that riding. Mississauga East Cooksville, Peter Fonseca right now, narrow lead over Nita Kang, the Conservative candidate in that riding. One more close race here. This is Newmarket Aurora. This is Jennifer McLaughlin over Sandra Kobina, leading by about 100 votes there, a little bit over 100 votes. So keeping a close eye on that. And then one more riding here. This is Eglinton Lawrence, the riding of Eglinton Lawrence. Vince Gasparo leading over Karen Stintz. Karen Stintz, very well known in the Toronto area, local politician in that city. But there you have it. Close races that we're keeping an eye on in the Greater Toronto area. And of course, the GTA will be a very big play in this election, as it always has been. Ontario will be, as it always has been, with 122 seats. Cole, is this... You actually reacted when Eric was talking about Conservatives overperforming in the GTA. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, I think it does quite a bit, just because of the variance in the polling numbers we saw throughout the election. So if we're doing a lot better than we were there, perhaps the Liberals can't get to that majority number. So we'll see how that plays out, but that does run, you know, opposite to the polling trend throughout the election. So that's an encouraging trend to perhaps hold the Liberals to a minority.
And Farouk, we have the NDP leading in 9 ridings, although I didn't see any of the NDP in the GTA right now. What are your feelings about what's unfolding in Ontario right now?
Yeah, GTA is going to be hard. I think the scenario is mostly the 3 seats in that trade corridor where the tariffs hit hard: London, Windsor West, Hamilton Centre. Right now it looks tight. It's not there yet. But 9, with the number of the Liberals around 162, 63, if I do my math correctly, 163 plus 9 is 172. So I'm just saying that it could be something like that. And even though Mr. Singh could lose maybe a third of the seats, there's still a chance that he could have the balance of power. So, I think he could hang on to that and see how it goes.
Well, and at this point, the NDP leading in 10 ridings, according to the ticker there at the bottom that we are tracking. You know, Laurie, when you look at these trend lines going, if Farouk's calculations are talking about 172, that is a majority territory, but shorter than what I think Liberals were expecting this evening when they looked at the poll aggregates and the predictions.
Absolutely. I mean, we've certainly seen in the past couple of weeks the Liberals go in the polls from almost a sure thing majority down to like not as sure, not so much. Now looking at these, like I did the math a couple of minutes ago. It was 10 seats not reporting, but looking at this, yeah, I mean, like there could be a scenario here where we come to the end of the night and they're not quite at that majority line, which means do they make another pact with the NDP to get through? What is the role of the Bloc Québécois in that case? Things start to get kind of really interesting. And I mean, Carney's been clear from day one, give me a majority. I need it to be able to get through to do what I need to do. This is going to be a very stressful circumstance for everyone, I think, if it's a minority.
On se rend compte en effet que dans les pires scénarios là, des sondeurs,
si on compare à ça, scenarios, and if the Bloc does better and the NDP does better, what pollsters were predicting, and if the Conservatives do better, that means that the Liberals do less well. So we'll still have results to come, but now it's starting to look like what it's going to look like.
Watching right now, let's bring in a national leading and elected board right now. Just get to some context to the bottom line that we're looking at. Liberals elected in 66, leading in 92. Excuse me, the Conservatives elected in 62, leading in 81. Now, I'm going to ask the control room to also get together for me, if it's possible, leading and elected in the province of Alberta, because we've talked about Ontario, we've talked a little bit about British Columbia, and certainly we talked about Quebec. This is the leading elected right now in Alberta, with the Conservatives elected in 19 ridings, leading in 13. The Liberals right now leading only in 3. I want to go back to Janet Brown, pollster in Alberta, the Janet Brown opinion research. Janet, thank you for joining us once again. So we were talking before we were going in, and again to state, we are early in the results when it comes to the
things I've witnessed covering the Conservative campaign for the majority of this campaign out on the road with Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. What stands out to me in my mind right now is platform release day. So in the last week of the campaign, the platform release had a whole bunch of issues with it coming out just last minute, not a lot of time there, but I really stands out standing in that room at that press conference at platform release day, and there was a moment when the whole energy in the room shifted, and Poilievre, in his comments about the platform release, sort of paused and said, "I owe this country everything." And in that moment, I felt the energy in the room completely shift, and it was as if he was acknowledging or feeling a change of winds, so to speak, about how things were going, and he had almost a sheen in his eye, saying that he owes the country everything. And I saw that again at another point in a rally, and that to me was a real sense of the campaign shifting in that final week, and seeing that. And I think I've mentioned this before, but last night at his rally in his own riding, when he said for the first time, "No matter what happens tomorrow, I'll be there to fight for you." And obviously the question was left hanging there as to whether he was acknowledging the possibility that Conservatives may not form government. So still waiting to hear official word from the campaign about reaction to this and to what's happening, but a much different mood in the room here now.
All right, thank you so much, Abigail. That's Abigail Beeman at Conservative headquarters in Ottawa. I want to bring in our chief financial correspondent, Amanda Lang. A couple of different things certainly stand out here. First of all, I know we talked about the economy more broadly, but for a lot of people it was about cost of living. And we're seeing some movement in the 905 in the areas around Toronto, which is a very unaffordable place to live, that there is additional support for the Conservatives coming through. At the same time, we see the Liberals being held to a minority. What does that tell you about Mark Carney's ability to deal with Trump?
I think, strategists will have a better view of this, but that whole, the price that incumbents pay really does play out when it comes down to people's, the affordability issue was one, the housing issue is a long-term structural problem in this country. Poor Sean Fraser may be paying for some of past sins there. What's, to me, very interesting that we need to be paying attention to right now is, when we got those two platforms kind of late from the Liberals and the Conservatives, we didn't really get a full federal platform from the Bloc Québécois because they don't need to. We don't need to know what they think about these things. Well, suddenly it might matter a great deal what the Bloc Québécois thinks because it may hold the balance of power. So when we think about the Liberals' spending plans, which are large, right? We know they're going to take our deficit up to $60+ billion in the first fiscal year. That's a big number. That's new debt that we'll all carry. They'll need the support from another party for that, and that other party might have spending plans of their own, let's remember. So what was already sort of a big spend facing down a tariff fight, trying to prop up the economy, and economists think it will do that, might get it to be an even bigger and more costly spend as we look down this.
And Amanda, as you're speaking, we just have the results for Central Nova. We saw a little bit of a seesaw back and forth, the Liberals and the Conservatives, and we are now able to declare that the incumbent, Sean Fraser, is going to be re-elected in his riding of Central Nova. So despite an early lead from Bryson Jenkins, the Conservative, we know that that Sean Fraser will be winning there, has recaptured his seat. Stephen Guilbeault winning his seat in
Hamilton to London to Windsor right now. Those are blue. The conventional wisdom was the collapse of the NDP vote would elect Liberals. But if the Liberals and the NDP both are strong second and third, the Conservatives could come up the middle. That may be what is happening in those areas. And just going back to the GTA, I know this was a concern up in the York region here, was that the NDP vote dropping would help the Liberals run up the score in the downtown Toronto core where they're going to win just by larger margins. But there were not really any NDP vote to be gained in a lot of these 905 outer areas. And that would just, you would have a false sense of how viable you were in those ridings, and you would see Conservatives flip those blue. So the Liberals, still early yet in Ontario, but vote inefficiency not playing in their favor as they are down double-digit seats in a province that pollsters from start to finish had them up double-digit points, right?
But that, again, speaks to what we're talking about around the popular vote and the seat efficiency. Nothing is working as it normally would in an election. That's what's happening, right?
Yes, and you know, Donald Trump obviously disrupted this entire election. I mean, the U.S. president makes about $400,000 U.S. a year. The Liberals should probably book that as a campaign expense, given the way that it's helped them throughout this thing. But, you know, until we get sort of the urban votes in mass number to know exactly how the cities of Canada are going to vote, and the suburbs of Canada are going to finally vote, and of course British Columbia, it's hard to know if they're going to get there. But the vote efficiency that has helped the Liberals win the 2019 federal election and win the 2021 federal election, despite losing the popular vote, at this stage, we're not yet seeing that. Now, they're starting to tick back up. They're in 161 right now. Them and the New Democrats and the Greens, Rosie, that's a majority. You got a bingo right there. But, you know, that's a whole lot of work that still needs to be sorted out at this point of the night.
Okay, thank you so much for that, David Cochrane. If you're just tuning in, we have, in fact, called a Liberal government with Mark Carney as Canada's 24th Prime Minister. He also has been elected for the very first time in his life in the riding of Nepean. We are waiting to see whether it's a minority or a majority, so we're going to go to Adrian now, who's got some results, projected results, maybe that will help us get there.
Indeed. So we're looking at a projected elected, the only one that is a flip in Ontario so far. That is Toronto St. Paul's with Leslie Church. Again, the only projected elected flip for the Liberals so far in Ontario. Wouldn't it be interesting to talk to Leslie Church? Well, why don't we do that? Let's talk to Eli Glassner, who is in Toronto St. Paul's with Leslie Church. Hello, Eli.
Yeah, Adrian, so we are here in our room crammed with volunteers.
Parties work together and, you know, effect change, because we are at a critical crossroads in this country, as we all know. Heather Butts is standing by with some more data and some more context. Heather.
Thanks, Omar. Yeah, we were looking at perhaps what parties, Nick, might actually end up helping the Liberals in government. But we'll take a look at our House projections. And this is, again, how we got to where we are right now in the evening. The CTV decision desk projecting that the Liberals could see a range of seats anywhere from 154 to 167, so not reaching that magic marker of 172. The Conservatives could get anywhere from 138 to 152. But Nick, we're really looking at the Bloc and the NDP. The NDP only getting anywhere from 9 to 15. This could really play out interesting tonight.
Yeah, a significant setback for the NDP. And the big question is, will the Bloc hold the balance of power in the next parliament? And what does that mean for the Federation and for Mark Carney and his government?
Certainly an interesting story playing out here. So, Nick, the numbers are coming in, but we still have some really close races. We still don't know for sure all of the MPs yet, of course, who will be heading to Ottawa. So we're going to zero in on Ontario, and we're going to look at the 905 area. For those of you not in Ontario, that's that area around Toronto on the outskirts, and we're looking in at Brampton right now. Nick, some pretty tight ridings here. First, taking a look at Brampton to Kesey Park.
Yeah, this is all going to come down to organization. It's basically street by street, block by block. It's going to be interesting to see whether the Conservatives can take it over or whether the Liberals hold.
Just an 81 vote difference there in that riding. Brampton East, Liberals in the lead, but just 221 vote split there.
And I think this speaks to the ground game and the Conservatives. They're probably hoping they can pick up a couple of these Brampton seats.
Okay, and this one, Brampton West, Nick.
Yeah, this is for the Liberals. So just think, if the Brampton's basically in play, you know, a handful of polls could make the difference.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move over to Aurora Oak Ridges. This is just north of Toronto, and the Conservatives in the lead by 982, but the incumbent, the Liberals, in second place.
Yeah, you know, this is good news for the Conservatives because this potentially could be a pickup, but, you know, check out the NDP numbers, basically nowhere, and the Liberals trailing.
Okay, and let's head over to Markham, Unionville. We'll see what it's looking like there. The Conservatives in the lead by 510.
Yeah, this is traditionally has been Conservative in the past, so this is good news for Poilevre on this front. But, you know, all of these races are fragile right now.
Okay, let's take a look at another one. Richmond Hill South, still in that Toronto area. Vincent Ho in the lead right now, but another Liberal incumbent trailing, Nick.
Yeah, you know, a bit of a comfy lead for Ho on this front, even with 115 polls reporting. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, with the advanced polls, how that actually plays itself out.
Okay, a couple of close ridings, close races in the 905. That is around the Greater Toronto area. For now, we'll send it back to the National Newsroom.
All right, Heather, thank you so much. And you see, again, the floor and the ceiling there, the max that the CTV News decision desk is projecting is 167, so about 5 seats shy of the 172 majority. And we have, in fact, called for a Liberal minority government. But some interesting results there coming actually from the 905.
Very much so. And I think reflective, again, as I mentioned to Amanda, of the challenges with affordability and the degree to which
are up 9. That is not what they were hoping for. What's happening in particular ridings? Well, let's look at Newmarket, Aurora here. This was the second slimmest margin of victory for the Liberals. Last time they hoped they would hang on to it. They are not. Let's look at Brampton. I spent a lot of time in Brampton. Even though this is a place affected by tariffs, everybody there talked about affordability and crime. They were very nervous. That may explain some of what you're seeing here with the Conservatives with the 419 vote lead. One more I want to look at here. This is Milton East, Halton Hills South. Brand new riding in Ontario. It was projected that it would be very close with the Liberals, and yet with only 43 polls reporting, the Conservatives have a lead there of 528. If at the end of the night we are talking about a Liberal minority and not a Liberal majority, you might want to look at what happened in the GTA for some answers there, Rosie.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Adrienne. I should tell you there are 5 ridings where we don't have any information yet at all, no data. But you can see there are 2 greens on the board there, and just to give you a sense of who those are, not confirmed, projected elected, but leading. That is both in Kitchener Centre with Mike Morris and with, of course, the co-leader Elizabeth May in Saanich Gulf Islands. We'll, of course, keep you posted on whether those hold. Let's go over to Ian, though, now with some results.
Yeah, Rosie, counting is slow in a lot of the British Columbia ridings, but I do want to take a look at what the seat change looks like at this point. And keep in mind, a lot of the seats in British Columbia are not projected to be done, to be elected, but still in play. But you can see both Conservatives and Liberals up by 3 each, and that's at the expense of the NDP. Let's look at some examples of what's leading to the potential seat change. Langley Township, Fraser Heights. What's interesting to me about this is John Aldag, who used to be an MP, running again here, is how his share of the vote has just soared. It's gone from 30% in the last election in this riding to 48.3%. And so it's not coming at the expense of the Conservatives. They have almost exactly the same support right now, it's early I know, as they did in 2021. Some of it's the NDP. Their vote has collapsed from almost 20% to just 5%. Vancouver Kingsway, if you know BC politics at all or follow the NDP closely, this will be really surprising to see Don Davies, the longtime incumbent, in second place. It's only a lead of 13, but we'll keep an eye on Vancouver Kingsway. Interesting to see that result. And in Richmond Centre, again, counts pretty small. They take a long time to count votes in a lot of the British Columbia ridings, but you see the incumbent Wilson Miao in second place, and the Conservatives right now in a small but still interesting lead. Lots of churn in these early counting moments in British Columbia.
And lots of close races, too. And we'll show you a little bit more about how close some of those races are and why the numbers at the bottom of your screen are moving back and forth so dramatically. And indeed, why we have yet to be able to call what kind of government Canadians have elected here. Right now, the Liberals leading are elected in 156. Remember, it's 172 you need for a majority. Conservatives ticking up to 148. Bloc at 25. NDP at 10. And the Greens now back down to 1. That shows you, as Ian was just talking about there, a lot of churn. A lot of things still moving here, and that means that we're going to take our time to call what kind of government Canada will end up with by the end of the night. We know it will be Liberal. We don't know whether it's a minority or a majority. Catherine Cullen, you have some results.
Yeah, let's look at some places where the numbers are starting to firm up. In this case, we're going to be looking particularly...
Good indicator of what was to come. Now, it was a three-way race. The Liberals are ahead of the incumbent Bloc. Still, though, overall in Quebec, the Bloc are leading at about 24, 25 seats. So they have lost seats, but they're looking at the possibility of holding that balance of power. We'll go over now to Ottawa. Patricia?
All right, Mitsimi, well, we know Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, now has a seat elected in Nepean, but next door in Carleton, so interesting in this riding, as results have just started to trickle in, and the early ones, with about 5 polls reporting, show the Liberal Bruce Banjoy with the lead over Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Now, very interesting, does not necessarily mean Poilievre is in trouble. Maybe it means we are. Could be a long night due to that very long ballot in Carleton, although I don't want to complain about that.
Coast of the Liberals doing, or the Conservatives doing better than expected, has carried on. These numbers are very, very close. The NDP did collapse, and that has been better news from the Liberals. So if those numbers change at all through the course of the evening, although there's only 2 ridings left to report, so probably not. I think this is, I think Pierre Poilievre has some time now to figure out what the answer is. I think he wants to stay. We'll see whether the Conservative Party does what it's done in many circumstances, which is to, kill the leader.
O'Toole did not get to stay when there was a Liberal minority, and he didn't have a 20-point lead.
Yeah, exactly. So, but there's been so much tension inside the party, and the accusations of campaign malpractice against Mr. Poilievre. I think
we've seen in the last few days of the campaign, Blanchette and the Bloc Québécois basically say Canada is an artificial construct. And so at the same time as, again, we're seeing this unity, we're also seeing tension. We're seeing pulling on that. In the event that we ended up with a majority Liberal government that left out parts of the country so that the divisions were very much on regional lines, I do think that could be a potentially very divisive, very difficult situation where you do get a sense of polarization's getting worse. You could get a sense where that for some people the result is not fair, and I'm not making any comment on the votes are going to be counted appropriately. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you might just get a tense situation that's made a lot worse if there's a sense that one party's in charge and that's it. And then how do we deal with that?
Ça, c'est intéressant parce que si on regarde les chiffres...
That's interesting because if you look at the figures, the feeling of unity is not being reflected in the current results. The Liberals are close. They're very close to the Conservatives. That's not something we expected. We didn't expect the result at all.
Credit, just because their team didn't win doesn't mean they want to bust the country or tip over the whole Monopoly game and send all the pieces onto the floor. Preston Manning, I think, was irresponsible in what he did. I don't think he helped the Conservatives. And I don't think he is reflective of the national sentiment. I don't think he's reflective of the majority sentiment in Alberta and Western Canada. There are many, many, many proud Canadians who carry their passport. Same with Monsieur Blanchard and his Canada's artificial construct. I mean, I think that helped pull votes to the Liberals. So the national unity, the purported national unity crisis manufactured by Preston Manning and potentially Danielle Smith, as you can see, kind of offends me. And I think probably, and I'll settle down, probably does to a lot of Canadians too. And just because your guy doesn't win or your woman doesn't win, doesn't
projection of aspirations on political leaders in this election.
And that can be dangerous. Obviously, Prime Minister Carney started with lower expectations, but I think what's really quite amazing is that learning curve and how quickly he adapts and how quickly he could pivot from being a leading banker in two different sort of states to an elected representative, because it's difficult, let alone in a different language that isn't his mother tongue. And I think the Quebec electorate has responded to that.
Chantal.
Talking about the Quebec electorate, if you look at the province that did deliver what the Liberals needed tonight, it was Quebec. Take away those 9 gains and we are in a very different territory, the one where we never go to sleep tonight because we're still waiting to figure it out.
Well, that could still happen, let's be clear.
And what was but the feature that caused this, yes, there was the Trump factor, but it was Pierre Poilievre's lack of popularity in Quebec.
Yes.
If Quebecers had not been so viscerally opposed to Pierre Poilievre, the Quebec results for the Bloc would not be as bad as they are. And the Liberals would not be sitting with not a very big lead on the Conservatives seat-wise.
Yeah, no, not a very big lead at all. We'll see where that goes. But if you see that kind of tight, if we're heading towards a minority and is that tight, my gosh, that's not a very stable time for anybody. David, you got some stuff you want to talk about there?
Look, Rosie, I think the political science term for that is a parliament from hell. But what's happening right now is the stories in Ontario, folks. I mean, look, the Liberals have been projected to win the most seats here tonight, but they are down in Ontario, not just below where we thought they needed to be for the path to majority. They're just flat out down. And like, let's go through some of the regions here. The NDP vote is nowhere in Ontario, but a lot of it's going Conservative. So we've seen the Conservatives moving into the Peel region here and like gaining seats in the York region. But what's also interesting is if you go to southwestern Ontario, look at this. Windsor right now is blue. London Fanshawe is blue. I believe Kitchener Centre, the Green Party seat, that is blue right now. And I bet you if we go into the Hamilton area, we're going to see some of that there as well. Look, there's no orange in Hamilton, but in Hamilton Centre, there's a Conservative in the lead right now. So this is the top-line numbers, and sort of the conventional wisdom of this election has been that the NDP vote collapse would just all huddle around Mark Carney as the new Progressive Party avatar. But what you're seeing is a lot of those orange votes seem to have gone blue, or at least the orange ridings are going blue, because the dynamics where red and orange are pretty strong seconds and third. And you know what? Doug Ford rode this dynamic to a majority in Ontario because you had Bonnie Crump.
Can win out over any strategic voting coalescing on the progressive side. So we're keeping watch on those two very close ridings and several others that are shaping up to be real races.
And
Omar, Bashi?
Mijong, thank you so much. And in many ways, BC pivotal for the future of the NDP. You see the tracker, as Mijong mentioned, 10 seats leading and elected for the NDP. They need 12 for official party status. Will they even have that before the night is over? The results in BC, particularly on the island where they have 6 of the 7 seats, or had, I should say, a dissolution, that is really going to fill in the story for the NDP and the future of the party and also the future of its leader as well.
Yeah, and really the sort of drop in their support in Ontario, a big part of the story. story as well. We'll look to get some of the key results in that province that are emblematic of that right now, though we want to head over to the riding of Central Nova, long held by the McKay family, now held for a number of elections by Sean Fraser in a bit of a nail-biter over the last number of hours. I want to head to Paul Hollingsworth, who is actually over there at Sean Fraser's headquarters, I believe. Paul.
More ridings from the NDP than the Liberals were, and that's not necessarily what was expected. They were expected to gain some, but they have, in this late evening so far, the Conservatives have closed the gap on the Liberals in ways that I don't think were anticipated, and we have to watch it closely. At the moment, they are still a few numbers away from being able to overtake, obviously from 155 to 151, but in terms of our meter as well, they are still a little bit shy of what they need. But boy, they're within about 4, and they're within about 4. So those two actually mesh. They're not that far away from the Liberals at the moment, and it seems like some late votes have come in that have shifted some ridings. And is there more of that to be seen?
We just don't know.
Are we in for a big surprise? This is a big surprise as it is that it's this close.
Yeah. All right, we're going to look at some particular ridings here. This is Vancouver Island, Saanich Gulf Islands. Elizabeth May, the incumbent there, and she has the lead.
Well, you have to hand it to her. Now, where are we at? We're at 25, but still, she's pulling out a lead right now. She's held the riding since 2011, and give her credit, right? Like, she just has been able to keep them on the map, the Green Party.
Oh, and this is early results in Burnaby Central. 9 of 200 polls reporting, and this is Jagmeet Singh's riding. He, at this stage, is in 3rd place.
And here we are, that could be the 12th seat. Look at the ticker, NDP 11. If only the leader won his seat, they'd have official party status. It's early. I'm not so sure the NDP are going to hold 11 by the time we're done tonight, but we'll see.
And this is Beauce.
Maxime Bernier in 4th. Is he going to get the message and pack it in as the People's Party guy? Not sure.
He used to own that riding when he was with the Conservatives, but he gave up to Conservatives, and voters gave up on him.
All right, do we have one more? Carleton. This is the first results we're seeing, or I'm seeing at least, from the riding where Pierre Poilievre is running tonight.
5 polls.
Fanjoy, the Liberal candidate, was working hard to take this seat from Pierre Poilievre, who has been elected 7 times in a row. This is early.
Well, yeah, way too early to say, but how weird would that be if the Conservatives win 150 or so ridings, or high 140s, and Mr. Poilievre were to lose there? Let's wait let's watch it anyway.
Yeah,
it's interesting, because I mean, there were a lot of public servants in that riding, and who knows how they mobilized, but I think we need to wait there.
Okay, David, what are you looking at?
I wanted to come back to the GTA. You talked about close races a few minutes ago, Don, and we got a ton of them in the Bramptons and Mississaugas, and I've been saying this forever. If you win one Brampton, you tend.
Look, they're at 11. They're at 11 seats right now. It requires 12 to get official party status.
Right.
This just in. If they get 11 seats, they're going to have no trouble negotiating official party status anyway, because they'd offer their support to the new minority Liberal government.
But then we're back where we started. And I don't think that's going to do that much to quash Western alienation after the 10 years we just had.
For the reason you gave, Rona, it would be toxic.
The bloc is worse, but the NDP.
Carney to go with the bloc.
I mean, the NDP is not going to be any better than what we just had for the last 10 years.
But depending on how this goes, I'm wondering, for the Conservatives on the panel here, is Blanchette on the phone with Poilievre right now, accepting those calls, wondering if maybe he's going to be I mean, it's not only the Liberals that are facing this question.
We are not going to be in a coalition with separatists.
So
that would never
okay, well then I guess then if that's
what's going to happen here is Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are going to have to work together. They're going to have to figure out where they have some common ground.
If he stays,
he'll stay.
Yeah. But I mean, I appreciate the discussion that we're having regarding dance partners, right? I think also this election has been very different, right? Canadians are wanting the parties to work together because we have a significant threat before us. And I think it's very important. I've known Mark Carney from before. He's not the type of person that's just going to be placating for the sake of who do I work with. This is about dealing with the most consequential threat. And to be honest, I believe it. So this is about working together. We have premiers working together, right? So it's incumbent upon us now, federally, to be working together as well. And I believe that Mark Carney is the right person to do that.
Okay, but this, in Mark Miller's words from earlier tonight, somebody from his own party, he is a rookie. So when you're talking about a minority government like this, this takes politics. This does not have experience with politics.
It is
we have seen people come from outside and land in Ottawa and get chewed up by the gears of bureaucracy. So how does he lead in a situation that right now, look at 157, 148.
The challenge he also has, too, is the Liberal Party has always been a coalition. I mean, certainly is now with all these NDP voters that have supported it. So he's got the challenge of dance party with the Bloc on the one hand, and then in a kind of a dance party inside happening down in the basement of the Liberal Party of Canada, where he's got to find his way to reaching his economic goals, which I think he sincerely believes in, when there may be a lot of people inside his party who might not be, super supportive of some of those things.
James, I want to take that thought bubble that I can see that's above your head and get you to say it out loud. What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, look, when you're elected into a majority government, then you can kind of plan out your agenda over the course of 36 to 48 months. When you're elected into a minority government, you have to prioritize, and you have to look around the nature of the parliament that's in front of you and where you can get your votes, what requires legislative approval, what you can do by governing council, what you can do through partnership with provinces, and do through Budget Implementation Act. So as a prime minister in a minority government, it'll be incumbent on Prime Minister Carney to say, these are my priorities, and before he puts those priorities out there, do proper consultation and recognize that he doesn't have a majority of the House. He doesn't have a majority of the popular vote. He has an obligation to respect the democratic mandate that is expressed in the entirety of Parliament and work with others in order to get things done. He is correct, Prime Minister Carney is correct, that the biggest challenge that Canada will have, at least through the calendar 2025 and probably for the next couple of years, is the threat of the abrogation of the Canada-U.S. Free Trade Agreement with the United States, the imposition of tariffs, and the belligerence from the White House. He can find willing partners in good faith in the Conservative Party in order to do certain things that will get Canadian products to global markets to mitigate the risk of Donald Trump's threat on Canada. Conservatives acting in good faith, Liberals acting with open minds and in good faith can get a lot of good things done for the country, but it requires people to come together and for Mr. Carney to come forward and to be prepared to do that.
Okay, so for those of you who know Mr. Poilievre, then, can Canada First and Canada Strong work together?
Yes. I think that yes, but I would say this. I think what we're going to need is for Mr. Carney to come a little bit further to the center, because right now, as you said, he's got that basement full of left-wing socialist voters that have got him there.
I'm not sure
NDP voters.
Not sure that's an exact quote.
NDP voters, I'll paraphrase. And he, for instance, his platform is more spending than Trudeau ever did. He also has a higher industrial carbon tax and then a carbon tariff at the border. And so when you look at tax increases and big spending, I don't think many Canadians want that. Definitely no Conservatives want it. So maybe he can back away from some of those things and work with Pierre on some of those things.
And maybe I'm romantic, or maybe I'm naive, or maybe I'm both. But it has been said, and it's true, it's one of my favorite quotes in politics, it's remarkable what you can achieve if you don't care who gets the credit. And if the purpose of Parliament is to nation build, and the purpose of Parliament is to bolster the Canadian risks against a President of the United States who today is joking about us being a 51st state, who mocks our country, who mocks our Prime Minister, if the threat against Canada from the President of the United States isn't enough for us to work together, if you don't care...
Aleksandra is a survivor of the 2011 Orange Wave and has won it again election after election. And this time, it's been a bit tougher for him this time. Jean-Sébastien Vallée is an unknown in the riding. It was the Liberal Party decided to appoint him as a candidate. He wasn't well known in the riding. Aleksandra should have won much more easily, but he has been re-elected nevertheless. You can see the results as we have the answer to our question, Michael.
Yes, we were wondering whether or not he would actually hold the riding. I will say
he held with that share vote you showed, Ian, very impressively, but the Liberals gaining that seat in the north is not insignificant. They'll be happy about that. Here in Regina, they were hoping to pick up some steam, maybe Regina Wascana, Ralph Goodale's former seat. That didn't come to pass as of yet, and you showed us Andrew Scheer's results. No surprise there. Andrew Scheer winning for the 8th time. The class of 2004 coming in at the same time as Pierre Poilievre as 24-year-olds. We're waiting to hear from Andrew Scheer. He'll be speaking with us, we believe, momentarily.
And what about the state of the NDP in Saskatchewan tonight?
Yeah, Ian, it's a bit surprising and disappointing, I think, at the same time for the NDP, because they did so well in the provincial election, putting up a big fight in that provincial result, really increasing their seat count, but that didn't translate federally. The federal and provincial NDP aren't really aligned, and that showed, I think, tonight in the results, that 13% drop in the share of the vote for the NDP, very significant, and the Liberals picking up a lot of second places across the province, which is a surprise here in Saskatchewan.
All right, Adam Hunter, thank you very much for giving us the lay of the land in Saskatchewan. Rosemary.
Okay, thanks for that, Ian. Let me show you what's going on at the bottom of your screen there. And that is a whole lot of nothing definitive, basically. 157 leading and elected for the Liberals, 149 for the Conservatives. The Bloc sort of sticking around that number now that most of the counting is done in Quebec. The NDP at 10 and the Greens at 1. And I believe that's Saanich Gulf Islands at this stage. So we are waiting to be able to give you a better sense of what kind of government Mark Carney will lead in his new mandate, where he is an elected prime minister, not just one who won leadership. That is Liberal headquarters, where there was a lot of excitement earlier in the night when it was declared that they would form government. But right now, they are
better than 50 or 75. But Lisa Harris, she was in a close race last time around when she ran and lost, and it's she could suffer the same fate this time.
Longueuil, Saint-Hubert. This one, about the same number, 338 votes between the Liberal and the incumbent Bloc Québécois.
This would be one of the pickups for the Liberals over the Bloc Québécois tonight. It's actually where the Liberals have done some of their most effective work, is in picking up seats in Quebec from the BQ.
Wow, Terrebonne.
Terrebonne, almost neck and neck here with the BQ and the Liberal candidate.
Natalie Sinclair Desgagnés is an Oxford-trained economist, and the Liberal has just graduated as an economics student. So, economics in Terrebonne.
And Anita Anand is leading now by 3 points. A little while ago, she was just a little bit behind. We are about 2/3 of the way through the count, so there you go.
Not a smooth sail for her at this point.
Not at all.
She is leading.
This has been far from a smooth sail for the Liberal Party in much of the country.
Mm-hmm. All right, David Aiken, what are you looking at?
Let's take a tour through some Western Canadian cities, because there's some interesting results there. Right now, I've got Winnipeg up on the screen right now, and that's the one little NDP dot, Winnipeg Centre. Leah Gazan, the New Democrat incumbent, she's a little bit ahead of the Liberals. The Liberals did hold this in 2015. It often is New Democrat. Pat Martin was the longtime New Democrat for this riding. So we'll see where this goes. We're keeping an eye on it. Conservatives doing relatively well again, this is downtown Winnipeg. Winnipeg Centre, wanted to take a look at that. Winnipeg West might be a pickup for the Liberals. In Winnipeg West, Doug Olson, an emergency room doctor who was the MP, then he got beat by Marty Morantz, and now they're back for another rematch, and this time Olson is up. He's up by 2,000 votes with 140 polls reporting, so Doug Olson might be feeling a little comfortable. We'll keep an eye on that. And then in Kildone and St. Paul, Raquel Dancho, who is the public safety critic for the Conservative, in a bit of a tight race. I just want to take a look. We have had, as you can see, some lead changes through the night. This is taking a look at as the polls came in. It's sort of flattened out a bit with a small lead for Raquel Dancho there. And then this is a loss for this might be a loss for the NDP in Elmwood Transcona. This is another rematch of a by-election. There was a by-election here last year, and Layla Dance won for the NDP against Colin Reynolds. Colin Reynolds is ahead right now. Reynolds is a leader in his private sector union. He's an electrician. And we know Pierre Poilievre made paid a lot of attention to private sector unions, woodworkers, laborers, you name it. And this Colin Reynolds was one of the poster guys, if you will, for Poilievre and the Conservatives' pitch there. So that's what's going on in Winnipeg. Let's zip over to Alberta. Let's take a look at Calgary. Right now in Calgary, the only Liberal who's got a seat, George Chahal in Calgary is losing right now to the Conservative. Not by much, 344 votes back with 45 polls in. Now, This riding, Calgary Confederation, this part of Calgary hasn't voted for a Liberal since 1940. It's been a while. But right now, Corey Hogan is the vice president of the University of Calgary, and that's University of Calgary is in this riding, is 169 votes ahead of Jeremy Nixon, a former MLA. So Nixon used to run for the UCP. Now he's trying to be a CPC, and he's a little bit behind there. That would be a historic win for the Liberals. That's Calgary Centre. Greg McLean, the bilingual Conservative incumbent, is a little bit behind Lindsay Lunau. So there's some close races in Calgary, potential pickups for the Liberals there. Up in Edmonton, not so good for the Liberals. The Liberals might have been expected to win at least two, Edmonton Centre and Edmonton Southeast. And that's not happening right now. Edmonton Centre, the Conservatives are ahead by 110 votes over the Liberals. And in Edmonton Southeast, where Amarjeet Sohi is running, 50 polls in, and he's well back. He's more than a couple of thousand votes back of Jagsaran Singh Mahal in Edmonton Southeast. That would be a big victory for the Conservatives, who are worried there might be something going on there. And in Edmonton Strathcona, I would have put this as maybe the second or third safest NDP seat in the country. Heather McPherson, their foreign affairs critic, she's 757 votes up on the Conservative. The last non-NDP to hold this riding was, in fact, a Conservative. It was Raheem Jaffer. Some may remember that name. So that's what's going on in Edmonton, Calgary, and Winnipeg. Some interesting results there, with all parties sort of making some gains or not making some gains, or we'll see how it all plays out. Lots of votes still to be counted, Donna.
All right, David, thanks. And you can see the Liberals and Conservatives, excuse me, the numbers on the bottom of your screen there. Keep flipping around. Right now, they are 12 points apart. Have I got that math right? Yes. And the Liberals hovered above 160 for a while there, but as I said it, it went back up. So, Eric, you were looking at the gains and losses, where the parties. Let's do your swing meter. What are you seeing?
Well, let's have a look, I guess, first of all, at the Conservatives. Now, when we talk about this, for the Conservatives to form government, that's that number we're talking about for government. Their lucky number was 27. That's a combination of their gains and Liberal losses. And the reason they're not as close to forming government, based on our swing meters, is they have gained 19, but the Liberals have also gained 7. So you have to take those 7 off of the Conservatives' gains, takes them back to 12. Well, if they're at, if they're at 12 is where they are right now, for a total number to get towards government at 27, they're a long way from being able to form government. The Liberals, on the other hand, are also a long way now from where they wanted to get to, which was to form a majority. And right now, and that one, they don't have to worry about the Conservatives. They just have to pick up a bunch of seats and win them against whoever to have enough gains to get to a majority. And we said they needed a gains of 18 total. On balance, they've only picked up 7. They've gained 28 seats, but they've also lost 21 seats. All of those are to the Conservatives. So they've lost a passel of ridings to the Conservatives. A lot of those are in Ontario, in places that they may not have expected. But right now, they're up 7. They need to get to 18. That means they're up 8 now, but they're 10 away from that. How many ridings are going to change from what we're seeing on the screen below us? They're 161 to 146. They are just a little, it seems like they're a little too far away from the majority line to get to a majority. The Conservatives are a little too far away from the Liberals to catch them. And we are sitting in that realm right now, Donna, where the Liberals are, as we've called earlier, safe to assume, I don't want to assume too much, but we've called them to form the government. Doesn't look like they can get to a majority. And, of course, it doesn't look like the Conservatives can catch up.
Okay, Eric, thank you. Let's go to the Liberal headquarters, where Mark Carney, I assume, will make an appearance at some point this evening. Mackenzie Gray is...
If this 5% holds up, it will be the worst showing in the history of the New Democrats. The other worst showing was in the 1993 election, a piece of history that Jagmeet Singh probably doesn't want to be associated with, but looks like that's where he's at.
No, we'll certainly have to wait and see how he answers to that this evening. But again, some really close numbers here. Mark Carney at 42% and Poilevre at 41%.
Well, think of Pierre Poilievre. Now he can say that he's done better than Stephen Harper, right? Like, he might not have been able to form a government, but that's still up in the air. But the thing is that he's done very well. More people have voted Conservative in this election than in any election in recent memory.
Yeah, there's certainly an underlying story there. Let's take a look now at the gains and losses. So the Liberals up 1 seat, and the Conservatives, as we were just talking about them and their popularity, up 7 seats, Nick.
Yeah, I think for the Liberals, even just up 1, considering they were at a near-death experience in terms of where they were at and where they were looking at a Conservative supermajority, you know, being only up 1 is probably decent. You know, for the Conservatives, they can claim that they're making headways not just in the popular vote, but also in the number of seats. But bad news for Blanchette and bad news for Singh.
Certainly. And Nick, we're seeing an interesting story play out in Ontario, typically helping to decipher who wins an election. Right now, though, it looks like it's who's going to, you know, have a minority majority. They're making that that ruling. The Liberals down 12 seats.
Yeah, we talked a lot about vote efficiency and how popular support would convert into seats. It looks like the Conservative ground game in Ontario was very effective at converting their level of support, even though it was trailing the Liberals, into seats in battleground Ontario.
Okay, let's move over to Western Canada and see how things have changed there. Potential seat change for the Conservative, gaining 8 seats in the West. The Liberals potentially gaining 6 seats, and the NDP, Nick, take a look at that, down possibly 10 seats.
Yes, we were talking about the feeding frenzy in British Columbia with both the Liberals and the Conservatives going into British Columbia repeatedly because they saw the NDP vulnerability. That's manifested itself, and both the Conservatives and the Liberals have benefited.
Okay, Nick, so let's take a look now right across the country as we see this, the potential seat change right across the country from Atlantic Canada to the West Coast. What stands out? What stands out the most to you on this one, Nick?
Well, you know, what really stands out is you can see the Liberals picking up in Quebec, Conservatives in Ontario and the West, and, you know, the NDP just basically a setback everywhere.
Okay, a really interesting story playing out here this evening, especially for the NDP, and we'll see a little bit later on, you know, where those votes really went and where their supporters went. And again, right now, CTV News declaring a Liberal minority. Back to you.
All right, Heather, thank you so much. Let's bring in Corey, Kathleen, and Scott right now. I want to go back to the story that's developing and emerging right now in Pierre Poilievre's riding of Carleton. We heard James Moore say just minutes ago he thinks that Pierre Poilievre will capture his riding. What's going through your mind, Corey, as you're watching these results?
I'm a lot less certain that that's going to be the case, because I look at
we had triggered an election earlier. It is potential. There was a potential that we could have had many more seats, but it was also very, very strong. I would say probability that the Prime Minister, that there would be a majority Conservative government, and that would be very bad for Canadians. So there was that. I think and Jagmeet Singh said he couldn't stomach the idea of a Conservative majority, and I think that many NDPers would agree with him about that. Many Canadians would agree with him about that. There was also the fact that the dental care program that we had negotiated hadn't yet been fully rolled out, and that pharmacare deals had not yet been signed. We had reached an agreement on pharmacare, but we needed to get some of those deals started so that Canadians could start to receive free birth control, free diabetes devices and drugs, and other things. And so that kind of helps to institutionalize the pharmacare program, and certainly the expansion of dental care was really important to us as well. So I think it was the right decision not to trigger an election earlier. I think that having a Pierre Poilievre majority Conservative government, and he had pledged at that time to eliminate the pharmacare and dental care programs would have been a bad decision for Canadians.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you may have been around the NDP since at least 1993. That obviously was a historic low in terms of election results. What lessons do you have, you know, having gone through that experience in the 90s?
Well, the lesson I have is that it's better to have more seats than less seats. And, you know, certainly during that period of time, one of the big lessons was that a majority Liberal government without a strong enough NDP gets away with things that I think are very problematic. Because during the 90s, when we didn't have official party status, the Liberals had a big majority. That was when they eliminated the housing program, made major cuts to health and social transfers, and transformed EI, employment insurance, into a system that no longer works for workers.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to you, Michael.
Mick, thank you for that. Anne McGrath, thank you for the time you shared with CPAC this evening. Listen, let's take one more look at the leading and elected board at this moment in time. You see there Liberals elected in 115 seats, leading in 49. Conservatives elected in 118, leading in 28. I want to go down to the bottom of the board because we also now have one Green elected, and that is, we can tell you, Elizabeth May, the Green Party leader. She does get re-elected in the riding of Saanich Gulf Islands, and there you go. The results board there. By over 2,000 votes over the Conservative Cathy Onstead on Vancouver Island. But yes, Elizabeth May will be returning to the House of Commons. And with that, let's bring in Eric Grenier. And Eric, we continue to watch these numbers evolve. As I said, when you look at the leading column, it's less than 100 seats that still need to be determined. We right now are looking at the Conservatives at 146 seats.
Conservatives. This is the story that is playing out in many, many ridings across Ontario, potentially across the country. That is why the number keeps bouncing the way it does at the bottom of your screen, Rosie.
Okay, yeah, it sure does. It's moving around an awful lot, but right now tracking a little more heavily for the Liberals. Remember, a majority government, 172. The Liberals right now projected or elected in 164. Let me show you what the vote share looks like right across the country. Adrian showed you that one particular riding. Look at that. 42.6 for the Liberals, 41.7 for the Conservatives. That is how close things are. And again, the second part of that story is as you go down your screen and you see what's happened to the Bloc and the NDP at just 5%, which is undoubtedly a devastating outcome for them. They are not yet right at official party status. Not sure whether they will get there. That is the number 12 that you have to watch for. But again, lots of things still fluid and in flux. And Ian's going to tell us a little bit about some of that.
Let's take a look at Vancouver Island. This has been a fortress in the past for the NDP, and a lot of people wondered what would happen to their seats. And you can see here that right now the NDP is trailing in 4 of the ridings that they hold on Vancouver Island, and both the Liberals and the Conservatives are taking the lead there. None of these, though, are projected elected. But let's take a look, first of all, at Victoria. Will Greaves, University of Victoria professor, has pretty well doubled the vote share for the Conservatives in a riding which for a long time has been held by the NDP. I talked to another professor at UVic who said that Professor Greaves got the nomination back when it didn't look like there was really any chance of the Liberals winning. Well, now next year he's not going to teach any students. He's going to be heading to Ottawa. Esquimalt Saanich Suk. Stephanie McLean has gone from being a cabinet minister in the Rachel Notley NDP government in Alberta to displacing the NDP candidate here. This is Randall Garrison's old riding, so of course he was an analyst with us earlier tonight. Obviously the incumbent not running again, but Maya Tate, Mayor Suk, was seen as a star candidate, and you can see she is in 3rd place. Let's take a look at Nanaimo Ladysmith, another place where the NDP support has plummeted. And Tamara Cronus is a lawyer, but on her website it says you might find her bartending at the Legion, sport shooting, or playing bridge. So a lawyer with a bit of a twist. That's kind of interesting. And yeah, huge lead going on in Nanaimo Ladysmith. Let's look at North Island, Powell River. This is a riding that I think some Conservatives thought they would win easily. And this is a riding that so far the NDP candidate, who is not the incumbent, has managed to hold on to more or less the share that the NDP had last time around. But still, Conservatives in the lead by just over 500 votes, Rosemary.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. I'm going to show a couple of boards myself now to explain a little bit more of the story we're seeing tonight. This is sort of what we call a party summary board, how they're doing right across the country at this stage in the evening. So you can see their vote share 5.5% overall. But look at those numbers on the right, on the far right of your screen. Those numbers down. The NDP is down in every region of the country. And let me show you where some of that has gone by showing you this next board. This is the Liberal Party. Overall, 42.6%. But look at that. Look at what has happened to them on the right of your screen. Up in every single region of the country. And that explains a little bit where we are tonight. That collapse of the NDP, yes, has supported everyone, the Conservatives and the Liberals, but the Liberals really surging with some support growth, some growth in every part of the country. Let's go to David Cochran.
Yeah, Rosie, I mean, the NDP are down by double-digit percentage points everywhere they could go down by double-digit percentage points. The only spot where they're not are the ones where they were in the single digits to begin with. But look, the path to party status was a difficult one for the NDP coming into Jagmeet Singh's third national election. They need 12 seats to get there. It's going to be tough. They have nothing in Atlantic Canada. We know that. They do have one seat in the island of Montreal. Aleksandra was re-elected in the Rosemont.
Some inroads in Ontario, that may have prevented the Liberals from getting to a majority, but they have not done well enough in Quebec and Eastern Canada, which has been their problem really ever since the Progressive Conservative Party blew up in 1993. They have, they've moved that center of gravity for the Conservatives out to Western Canada, and as a result, they've had a hard time connecting with enough Conservatives to win enough seats to form government. I mean, they've had one majority since the Mulroney days, and that was with Stephen Harper in 2011, Donna. But for the most part, the Liberals are, governing as they've governed so often. They just keep winning, 2 or 3 elections before the Conservatives can win an election. So at the moment, we're seeing it kind of unfold. Some of the reasons why the Conservatives are doing better, and reasons why the Liberals are still holding on.
149 seats is not nothing where they're at right now,
No,
but it's not
for sure.
enough.
And a lot of that is what they did in Ontario to pick up.
Eric, thank you. Let's go over to David Aiken, who is with Daryl Bricker from Ipsos.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. So Daryl, of course, Daryl Bricker of Ipsos. People have been out doing exit polls, asking voters as they come out of a voting booth a whole range of interesting questions. I mean, there's 80, 90 questions loaded in here. We could spend an hour and a half there. Yeah. But let's start off with, we were going to start off with, I think, wild card.
Right.
Is Canada on the right track? So this is someone who voted today, might have voted for a Liberal, might have voted for a Conservative. Here's all voters, 7,000 people, and we're not on the right track, says people who voted today, and they didn't throw the bums out.
Right. So this is the context of the campaign. So Mark Carney is seen as the man of the moment on one issue. The Liberals designed their entire campaign around it. It was dealing with Donald Trump in the United States. So on that issue, fine. But as far as the Liberal record is concerned, what they've produced in Canada over the last 10 years, this is the effect. More people, by a considerable amount, feel that the country's on the wrong direction rather than the right direction.
And we can say, folks, going through it, boomers, Gen Xers, it's pretty consistent right across the board.
Yeah.
We're going in the wrong direction. Now, I think it was attitudes on Canada. Oops, sorry, is that me?
That was me.
Okay, there we go. Canada is broken. This is what Pierre Poilievre was saying last fall. He got criticized for saying that, and yet quite a few people agree.
A fifth of us strongly agree with Pierre Poilievre was saying. Almost half of us overall think that Canada is broken. This, again, underscores the fact that people are not satisfied with the direction of the country, not satisfied with the last 10 years of a Liberal administration, and even though the Liberals can sneak in on this one issue, the overall context they're going to be walking into after this in a minority government situation possibly is going to be difficult.
Let's say, I mean, the data that the parties have, I'm sure they're doing polling something similar to this. If you're in Poilievre's inner circle tomorrow or in the coming days, you probably go, see, we were right all along. This is probably validating the axis of their campaign, essentially.
Until 2 months ago, they were right.
Right.
And that's what people were jumping on. This is what underscores, folks, time for a change. I hear that a lot in politics. There was a really strong belief prior to Mark Carney becoming the leader of the Liberal Party and Donald Trump to doing what he decided to do, a real desire to change. That hasn't gone away.
You're Mark Carney. You sit down with your cabinet. You have this data that people think Canada's broken. We're moving in the wrong direction. He did move quickly on carbon taxes. He moved quickly on a couple other things. I guess he's got to move even more quickly to really show that his government is taking some of these concerns seriously. That would be the takeaway for the Liberals, I assume.
He's on a very short leash. His priority, and as far as Canadians are concerned, is one issue, which is dealing with Donald Trump. Everything else is going to be difficult for him and going to be difficult to manage.
Yeah. So, guys, as we go back, we're going to probably talk about this later in the night as we listen to leaders' speeches. We may hear, I think, at least one leader, that'd be Jagmeet Singh, who is probably going to talk about his future. And that is, in terms of the parliamentary calendar, that, while a leadership race unfolds, the NDP are not going to want to force an election, but they may not hold the balance of power. It's going to be a very interesting parliament, I think.
A very interesting parliament. We haven't seen anything like this in quite a while.
No, indeed. All right, Donna, Mr. Eric, what do you think?
Okay, great. Yeah, it's Liberals at 162, Conservatives 149, and it's just, I think as long as there are these close ridings, we're just going to see those numbers just fluctuate.
Yeah, I mean, the longer it goes, you know, when we talked about those numbers won't fluctuate as much as time goes on, because more things get in, more things get a little bit more into cement. But so it's going to be hard now. The Conservatives, as we called, aren't going to catch them. It was just that there were some ridings that gave us a bit of a surprise there for a while. But right now,
let's look at Lac Saint-Jean. Gilles Ducep's running there, and we have projected that he, in fact, will win that riding by a handy majority there, or a handy percentage. Let's go to Mercedes Stevenson and the political panel, including Gilles Duceppe.
Yes, congratulations.
Thanks, not me, it's him.
He learned, I'm sure, a thing or two, though, from Dad.
Yeah, but we're always learning.
That's true.
From one or the other.
That's right. A humble politician, exactly. Not always a contradiction in terms.
Humility being the word of the evening.
Exactly. And it's, on that note, I want to go to you, Seamus.
Sure. Let me tee it up for you.
The Liberals being handed a government here, but it's a lot closer than people expected. What is the message that Canadians are sending tonight to Mark Carney?
Well, you know, let's see what happens. These numbers are still so close. We're still watching some very tight races, including my friend Anthony Germain in Newfoundland. We'll see. I think regardless of what happens this evening, whoever forms government, it looks like it'll be Prime Minister Carney. Yeah, you take it with some dose of humility. You know, Canadians are sending a message that they want somebody who's going to be able to negotiate with an American neighbor that has suddenly become a threat. But there were a lot of other things coming out of COVID, coming out of affordability, interest rates that they are not happy with. And so you got to get busy. And from what I understand, he told the Liberal War Room earlier this morning that if indeed the Liberals did win, that you hit the ground running right away.
Yes, but the problem is we don't know tonight because there'll be a lot of recounting, I think.
Yeah, by the look.
So we don't know who will be the Prime Minister, because if he doesn't have the majority, he will have to deal with whom.
So my question.
So if the Bloc has the balance of power, be sure they will negotiate with both parties to obtain what they want to have.
So what could happen tonight is that we declare a Liberal minority, for example, but then they ally with the Conservatives.
If you look at the situation.
So for Canadians who don't follow the intricacies of how a minority parliament works.
Yes, please let us help.
Well, I'll cautiously take some steps. The Liberals, given these numbers, if something like this holds, they get the first opportunity.
They do.
To form a government. And what they will appeal to the Governor-General is say, we have an agreement with the Bloc or the NDP, and this is how we're going to govern. If no such agreement exists...
And we find confidence of the House.
And then we're going to return to the House as soon as possible. We'll have a vote to show that we can govern.
Yeah.
If they can't show that agreement, and the Bloc are sitting saying, well, we're talking to both the Liberals and the Conservatives, there may be a scenario, and this would be a bizarre moment, but maybe not, where we're seeing Pierre Poilievre attempting to make a deal with the Bloc leader, which, as a Western Canadian... Well, I think it's bizarre in the sense of...
Sorry, I'm asking...
We've been through a scenario before with Mr. Dion and Jacques Layton.
We got along fine.
There's moments where we did get along fine.
Paul Martin, I did it with Stephen Harper. I would ask any party in a situation when they could have the balance of power.
Yeah, so it's a very...
They won't say, no party will say, okay.
But
you say, wait a second, you will negotiate before saying, okay.
Beyond for power, the question will be for what? I just think for a Conservative leader who has been careful, we talked about this a little bit, Poilievre has been careful not to attack the Bloc. Not like he did the Liberals or the NDP.
But the Bloc has attacked the Conservatives previously.
Not during the campaign, but a lot before the campaign.
A lot before. So do you see a scenario where Pierre Poilievre would be willing to make some of the concessions that he would have to make, things like supply management, with the Bloc Québécois to try to form a government?
I think that any good leader would listen to anyone who would want to come to him to discuss possibilities. Why wouldn't you listen to them?
But who your partner is can affect your own reputation. And that's true.
In a minority.
Of course it does. So look at how the NDP look at how the NDP have been affected over the last 3 years of making an agreement with Mr. Trudeau when he was Prime Minister.
Did not help
had a very, very negative effect on our reputation with a number of Canadians. This is calculus.
Let's make them even more.
Seamus, go ahead.
Who will be doing the negotiating?
Well, isn't that an interesting question?
Right? Who is the leader of the NDP after tonight? Who is the leader of the Conservative
We've
Party?
got a while to go. We will come back and we will revisit what's going to happen in terms of the leaders. But, I mean, Donna, it just tells you what a wild night we're having here. The numbers all over the place, the possibility of a bloc-backed Conservative minority. It's all kinds of interesting things that are unfolding here that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, you start doing the math and figuring out who could work with who and how that's all might shake down, and then who's leading which party. Yes, lots to watch for, and it's still all we know is there's a Liberal government. We don't know the shape of it at this point.
It's always a potentially more explosive arrangement. Any party, national party, that would strike a deal with the so-called separatist party in Quebec, like it's just a little bit more volatile to think about that as opposed to the others. So everybody would have to sort of be thinking hard about just what kind of deal and with whom when you look at these possibilities. But the possibilities are lining up right now.
Okay, let's go to Carolyn Jarvis, who's in Toronto. I think you're with Chrystia Freeland. I am.
Nikki Ashton is trailing by quite a bit, so we don't have enough information there to declare this riding, but you can see it's a big and solid lead for Rebecca Chartrand, who lost this riding by a small margin to Nikki Ashton way back in 2015. And let's look at the perfect bellwether, the riding in Winnipeg South, which since I think 1988, the winner of this riding is also a member of the government. It happens time and time again, and it's happened again. Terry Duguid is leading, or actually has been declared elected there. Bartley Kivas, our CBC reporter who's done some excellent work in Manitoba covering politics, is with the winning candidate in that riding. Go ahead, Bartley.
So, Ian, as you mentioned, Winnipeg South is a perfect bellwether. Since it was created in 1988, it is only elected candidates from the party that wins, and I'm with one of them right now. Terry Duguid, first of all, when you were thinking in December 2024.
Staying in the GTA right now, another close race, Mississauga East, Cooksville. You have there Peter Fonseca leading right now over Nita Kang of the Conservatives, 170 polls reporting of 222. Switching over now to Brampton South, you have there Sukhdeep Kang leading over Sonia Sidhu. Again, the spread very tight there, 130 polls. Switching over right now to another close race in the GTA. This is Brampton, Chinguzi Park. You have there Liberal Shafaq Ali over Tim Iqbal. A very tight margin, couple of hundred votes there with 153 polls. Getting close to getting all those 200 polls reporting there. Brampton North Caledon, Ruby Sahota, there you have it right now leading over Amandeep Judge by about 100 votes, roughly speaking, 98 polls of 175. Let's keep looking at some of the tight races in the GTA, which indicates the fact that we're going to be here for quite some time as we're trying to secure the final elected in these. But the Liberal Amandeep Sodhi over Taran Shahal in Brampton Centre. And one last riding where it's also close, Brampton East, Maninder Sidhu leading over Bob Dosanjh Singh, roughly by about under 1,000 votes, I'll say. But there you go. So some tight races in the Greater Toronto area. So we are going to keep tracking this. You have now Liberals leading 162, leading and elected in 162 ridings, Conservatives at 149 leading and elected. Listen, we're now just past the midnight mark Eastern time, and I've been very happy to have the three of you join us, as Susan and Cole, and I want to talk about how are you feeling, before we switch over again, just how you're feeling about tonight and what we're watching unfold. Farouk, I'll begin with you.
Surprised by how tight it ends up being, because, I mean, what was projected was something more that the Liberals would have like 3-4 points ahead. The popular vote is really tight. The Conservatives are above 40%. So if you now, we're going to analyze the numbers tomorrow when we have them all, but at first sight, Mr. Poilevre kind of delivered what he wanted to deliver, but it was just a bit more to get where he wants. And internally, we know there was a lot of fighting internally, premiers and campaign directors and this and that. So I'm not sure how it's going to end up after today, because Poilevre kind of delivered, not the win, but he delivered a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, interesting to see how it goes. And as you say that, the control room put up where the popular vote is. Look how close this is. Liberals 42.6%, Conservatives 41.9%. So a very, very close spread. And in terms of popular vote, you see both parties building on what was there before. Cole, how are you feeling about this evening?
Looking at that result, I think that's the highest share of the votes that Conservatives have gotten since the Mulroney years in the 80s. So in regular circumstances where the NDP is doing a lot better, like this would be a majority win for us. So Pierre Poilievre has delivered in terms of gaining more seats. We'll see how the math plays out afterwards. But just looking at the series of events that led to this election, you know, we had Justin Trudeau's resignation, we had Trump and tariffs, we had the election of Mark Carney as Liberal leader. We were up 25 points in the polls. Then things flipped around and the Liberals were up by 12 points. Then throughout the duration of the election, things narrowed, and so much so that now we're in a very, very close race as things, you know, come to the end here. So in the series of events and just the ever-shifting landscape politically that we watched this election take place in, it's not that surprising that we had just as interesting of a result as we had, you know, the duration of the election in terms of the results.
You know, while I have you, Cole, I do also want to, because Jenny Byrne, who has run the Conservative campaign, has been heavily criticized for the way she's run the campaign. In fact, some of the knives were already out for critical that the Conservatives are not on the way to government. Do you think this result helps vindicate her, or is she still under criticism from the party?
Well, this is still a loss. I mean, this is gains from where we were at before the election. So I think that there will be some conversations afterwards, but this is, you know, further than Andrew Scheer got us, further than Aaron O'Toole got us. And, you know, I saw the interview that Doug Ford did, and he was ribbing Tim Houston about having a leadership-style video published online, and he was joking with Tim Houston saying, geez, you're not even waiting until the body's cold. And, you know, like, that's funny from Doug Ford because he was very active during this election. You know, sort of doing the exact same thing. So we'll see how this plays out afterwards, but this is significant gains in terms of where we were at from before the election. So that'll be a conversation that happens afterwards. There's going to be some new members of caucus there. We'll have to see how they feel and how, you know, a leadership review shakes out afterwards. But this bodes well, I think, for the Conservative leader.
Okay. Susan, how are you feeling about tonight? Again, a Liberal government, but right now, not yet a Liberal majority.
I'm delighted that it's a Liberal government, and I think that's the most important thing tonight, that tomorrow morning Canadians wake up and it's Prime Minister Mark Carney who's going to be taking those calls from Donald Trump or making those calls to Macron and Starmer and our other trading partners in the EU. It's been a hard-fought. Liberals have been through the ringer. Actually, the Conservatives have been through the ringer, different kinds of ringers. They were up. They were going to...
Pierre Poilievre out, and also to have the strongest possible stance against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And so they've lent their votes to the Liberal Party this time. But remember, the NDP is still the government in 2 provinces. We're the official opposition in 4 provinces. I still see a path to 12 seats there because the NDP heavily works advanced polls and everyone knows that. I think we could still end up with 12. I think the Liberals could still end up 12 seats short of a majority. So we could still have a fairly positive outcome. But I'm not you know, trying to say that this is a good night for us.
No, you're not going to sugarcoat it. You're a political scientist and recovering politician.
Recovering both. So, but I think there's, you know, room to rebuild from this.
Sure.
And that Canadians will remember that Mark Carney is first and foremost a banker and an investment capitalist. And so when it comes time for the Parliament to try and deal with the trouble that Trump is going to cause for ordinary Canadians, there need to be those voices there to say, what are you actually going to do to make it better for ordinary people? And there'll still be at least 9 or 10, if not 12, New Democrats to raise those questions.
Do you think, though, that Mr. Singh should have, earlier in the campaign, you know, we talked a lot about how Mr. Poilievre should have pivoted, and who knows if that's actually the truth given where the numbers are. But I wonder whether Mr. Singh should have pivoted earlier, whether he should have not suggested that there was some world in which he was going to be Prime Minister and should have pushed more for the balance of power and protecting the things that you're talking about.
Well, it's a very short campaign we've been in, and so pivoting earlier means a week earlier, maybe.
Well, no, starting from that point, maybe.
Well, from the beginning, we had no idea what was going on because of Trump. We had no idea what kind of campaign it was going to be. We had no idea that this big shift would be, whether it would be lasting for Carney or there was a bump. Yeah. So for the first couple of weeks of the campaign, nobody really knew what was happening. And once we did know what was happening, he did shift very quickly.
Right. What happens if he loses a seat?
Well, it's always hard for leaders to lose their seat if they want to stay on as leader. And you know, I'm ultra honest. I don't know whether he'll want to stay on as leader if he loses his seat. It's going to be very difficult for him. I know it's been very hard on his family because of the threats that have been made to him. And maybe he won't wish to continue. On the other hand, the advanced polls come through, he still wins his seat, we still have 12 and the Liberals are 12 short. That's another whole thing. So that's a story you can't write yet.
No, yeah, that's fair.
And we'll live to see tomorrow where we actually end up.
Okay. Thank you, Randall Garrison. Appreciate it.
More votes than since 1988. So their showing is good, but it's very frustrating to not form a majority. And the Liberals are coming back with a few more seats thanks to the collapse of the NDP and the Bloc. So I think everybody's got to come back a bit humbled and hopefully come back to Parliament recognizing that these are the two parties that really need to work together if we want to do something on the economy and we want to deal with the issues of trade and tariffs. Because I don't know if we're going to find the dance partner with the Bloc or the NDP, potentially. So let's hope that both leaders can focus on the economy. But no, I don't think you would see a prime minister invite someone from the opposition to sit in a cabinet. It would be a much more informal type of arrangement.
Let me throw this then to our resident romantic, and that would be James Moore. You called yourself that, not me. Is this an enemies to lovers situation, if we could put it in a...
No, I mean, look, 4 months ago, Pierre Poilievre was going to win a big majority, and he didn't.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, Mark Carney was going to win a big majority, and he didn't. So I think humbled is the right word.
Right.
Both parties, had outstanding turnouts in terms of the popular vote mandates that they have, but it's a question of the efficiency of the vote where it's placed around the country. In terms of go forward, I mean, look, every single day we all wake up and we pour through the headlines and we see different narratives from Donald Trump about, why he's putting in what tariffs or what he's not, and he's going after China, then he's backing away. But it's about fentanyl, no, it's not. It's about borders, it's not. It's about capturing an auto sector back into the United States and repatriating investment. On a day-to-day basis, you kind of don't know. But I think, as has been shown in the past, Ron and I sat on an after council with the former government because we put country first. And I think that, any government in this certain circumstance where it looks like the Conservative Party has a massive high new floor in terms of what its vote base of support is across the country. Pierre Poilievre did extraordinarily well in terms of the number of Canadians who voted for the Conservative Party, the best result since I was, 12 years old. And that's an incredible accomplishment, but it's not efficient, and it's more rural, and it's more working class, and it didn't quite have the efficiency in terms of seats. We don't count votes, we count seats. So there's work to be done there in the long term. But yeah, I mean, you have an absolute collapse in the New Democratic vote and a fall of the Bloc Québécois vote, and you see what you see in terms of the seat count. So, yeah, I mean, look, there's lots to go through here in terms of the results and what it means in the long term. But specifically with Canada, U.S., I think Prime Minister Carney obviously has an obligation. He asked for a mandate to become Prime Minister to deal with the United States. And there are some really smart, thoughtful people out there who have experience with this administration from 16 to 20 and the current dynamic, who he can call upon in order to try to navigate us forward for the next couple of years.
And I agree with that. But I also, I think the obligation is on Prime Minister Carney, but the obligation is also on the other members of the House of Commons who are not in government, because we are facing a national crisis. We are facing an existential threat to our economy, and so it's really important for all the members of the House of Commons to be united as often as they can. So Carney has to reach out, but also the Conservatives, I think, have to reach back too. And I think that's really what Canadians want to see, is not not a relitigation of the election and a constant at each other's throats about everything. I think we want to see our Parliament working together.
Okay, let me ask, Harj, I'll let you jump in a second, but let me ask you or Rada this question, James, and that is, when we've seen how Pierre Poilievre is in opposition for these last 10 years, now we're talking about a humbling on both sides. What does that look like now when we're debating? What does that look like when we're trying to get things passed? Is he able to do that kind of a pivot?
Well, you mentioned that Mark Carney should reach out and Pierre should reach back. But also it has to go the other way. So we've got this split in the country. The issue of tariffs and Trump are important for a lot of people. The issue of affordability is important for a lot of people. So Mark Carney's platform was one of big spending and new taxes. So we also need him to work with Pierre on those issues in a new budget. So there has to be the tariff issue addressed, there has to be the national unity issue addressed, there has to be the resource economy issues addressed, there has to be taxation addressed, addressing the deficit. So all of these things fall out amongst this split that almost feels like it's almost down the middle from a popular vote point of view. And both leaders are going to have to come together and work on these together.
While those two leaders are trying to work together and to figure this piece out, what happens with the NDP? We have Jagmeet Singh, who's currently sitting in third place in his riding. Who and what does the NDP need to do next, Tom?
No, wiped out in Ontario, and people like Nikki Ashton losing their seats. This is a really tough evening.
Brian Massey in Windsor West. What does that say when someone
Brian Massey's been there for 20 years. And I know of no one who's supported the auto sector more than Brian Massey. And yet we talked a lot about the GTA and the efficiency of the Liberal vote there, and that was proven tonight. But talk about a stealth operation. I mean, I don't think anybody saw the Conservatives running the table in southwestern Ontario the way they just did. So it was an extraordinary result on their part. And it reminds us that you can have the support of all
supporters, a large group that's here at the pub here in Bowmanville, North Oshawa. And you said to them, among other things, that Doug Ford was a problem for you in this campaign. You said that he sabotaged the Conservative campaign. That's your words. You said he was a hype man for the Liberals. Take me through how you see that.
Yeah, well, look, Doug Ford just went through an election. I have differences of opinion with him. I don't like how he's managed healthcare or education. But out of respect, we didn't say anything. Federal party, we didn't get in his way. When it was our turn to run an election, he couldn't stay out of our business. Always getting his criticisms and all his opinions out, distracting our campaign, trying to make it about him, trying to position himself as some kind of political genius that we needed to be taking cues from.
Was it him specifically? Was it his campaign manager, Corey, tonight? Do you see Doug Ford as a problem for the Federal Party in the outcome of this race?
I see Doug Ford as a problem for Ontario and for Canada. I think he's not doing a great job in running this province, and now he's trying to exercise his influence over other levels of government, and it's not like this guy is doing anything particularly well. I mean,
you did used to work for him.
I did. I'm speaking from experience. I tried to fix problems in this province, and he kept getting in his way and all his goons around him all the time. They wouldn't make anything better, and now we're seeing him because this guy's a political genius because he beat Bonnie Crombie and Stephen Del Duca, and now we got to sit around getting advice from him? No. He has taken the provincial Conservative Party and turned it into something hollow, unprincipled, something that doesn't solve problems. He's glad-handing with Chrystia Freeland, having coffees and lattes with Mark Carney, and I'm sitting here saying we need to be fighting for change and something new and something different, not being a hype man to the Liberal Party.
Some would argue that the challenge within the federal Conservative movement is that there are these divisions, divisions that in some ways you're outlining tonight, and that it is the thing that stops or prevents, holds back the Federal Party from the majority government that it seeks. Do you see that as a possible outcome to some of the fractions and frictions that exist within the Federal Party?
There is a lot of unity from Conservatives across the board. Peter MacKay and Stephen Harper and Jason Kenney, James Moore, all sorts of people who've been part of our movement for a long time, united behind Pierre. They're opportunists like Doug Ford, and I think it's not about ideology or differences of beliefs. It is about some people believing our purpose as Conservatives is to be an alternative to what the Liberals offer, and then there are people like Doug Ford who are opportunists, and I reject that outright.
Do you have any leadership ambitions?
Look, we have a leader of our party right now. We're still waiting in for the final seat counts. I don't know what tomorrow holds. My focus, though, is on all the young people, all the parents, the moms, the dads who came to us and trusted us to offer an alternative, a brighter future. We're going to see that through. We're going to keep fighting, and when the next federal election comes around, Conservatives will earn the trust of more voters, and we will bring home a victory nationally.
My last question to you looks at the results. As we speak here right now, 160 for the Liberals, 151 for your Conservatives. This is a lot closer of a race than some had expected. Why do you think that is?
Well, look, I think a lot of people misunderstood just the frustration that Canadians felt. All these polls that showed Conservatives far below the Liberals, I think we're missing how many young people saw our party as the party of dreamers and hustlers and strivers and builders. That is our identity for young people, and we are going to continue offering them that vision for Canada. As we continue to see progress made, earning more trust, growing our party, getting more union support, police support, young families, working class families, I think we will see this identity that Pierre Poilievre has helped develop crystallize further, and our party will only go up from here.
Jamil Giovanni, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, Adrian, I will turn back to you.
And we knew it was going to be a hard one, and we're fighting it to the end. What have you been hearing from the residents here? That crime is the #1 issue for many residents. For the Jewish community, it's anti-Semitism. For parts of North Toronto, it's the car theft and the break-ins. And the Italian community is a general feeling of being unsafe. And that's a big issue. The economy is a big issue. And immigration is a big issue.
And considering the voting history in this riding, having it be a Liberal stronghold, I mean, you had an uphill battle from the beginning. Given how close this race is tonight, and if you take it, what do you think that says about what the voters here want?
Well, the voters here want change, and they know that it was a change election and that the Conservatives represented change. And so, you know, I did build a relationship with the community over my time as a city councillor, and, you know, I think that I represented the community well, and so I hope I get the chance to do that again.
Thank you so much for that, Karen.
Thank you.
And so there you have it. We're still waiting for the results, and it is too close to call here in Eglinton Lawrence past midnight. So certainly a crowd, and they're actually all quieting down because I think some of them are realizing that we're hitting from here. But again, a very, very hot riding to watch in this election for sure. We'll send it back to you, Donna and Eric.
Okay, Tracy Tong, thanks. We're going to look at some other ridings that are similarly close. Let's have a look through those.
Just mention Eglinton Lawrence for a second. Yeah. That one is like 121 votes, so there you go.
So anyway. these ones have a higher polls reporting.
Yes,
so,
and they're still very close. I think, yes, as we said earlier about Terra Nova and the peninsulas and Newfoundland and Labrador, I think there's like one poll left to come in. The lead is 46. Who knows? Yeah. Terrebonne in Quebec, the BQ, leading by with a 60-vote lead. These are very close. Fleetwood, Port Kells out in BC. Liberal leading there by just less than 1% as well. Vancouver Kingsway. Wow, it's all over the country. Is interesting too, right?
It is.
But it
don't. It's not going to work. Legislature. We've all been in Parliament and a legislature. Yeah. And there's a reason why you're one sword length, two sword lengths away from each other. That's right. You know, and there's a reason why the turnout is what it is, and the engagement is what it is. So you can look at it negatively that, you know, it's divisive. It is divisive, but it's also been extremely engaging. People actually know platforms. They know policies. They read them. They got out to vote. Young people got out to vote. Oh, you know, across the demographic. I think there's a silver lining here. I know we're divided. We're going to have to work together. But I love that it was such an engaging election. I think that's healthy for democracy, and it's healthy for the country. I'm very sad to see what happened with the NDP. A lot of really good people, really good parliamentarians lost tonight. And that's unfortunate, and they'll have to go through a leadership race. Because I do think we're healthier with a multi-party system.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I know people have had their say, and this is what it looks like, but we're not used to being sort of a two-party run country. We're used to more diversity and more of a mix, more of a salad.
Yeah, but it's true the Parliament is divided, relatively close in seats, 41-41 popular vote, divided. However, about a third of Canadians in the span of the past 6 months, a third went from voting for Pierre Poilievre to voting for Mark Carney, and then in the end kind of splitting in the end. But a third of Canadians have switched their votes around depending on the dynamic. That's not a divided country. That's a country that has differences, but differences of emphasis and choosing between, and I think we actually had two very strong, effective, honorable choices in Prime Minister. In Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, two very different people, personalities, presentation, emphasis, but two very good choices. And I think a lot of Canadians didn't vote for one because they hated the other. They voted for one because they thought that person was better than the other. And so when you have a third of the voting population swing, as we've seen in the past 3 months, that's not a deeply divided country. It's a country trying to sort out the right answer and the right outcome in order to deal with with contemporary challenges.
Well, and now the question is, are the Conservatives going to elect a new leader? I mean, that's a question, obviously, for another day for Conservatives, and we will find out then, do the Conservatives want to choose a more pessimistic, kind of a dark path, or do they want to choose an optimist? And I think, that is also going to be, kind of in the next step here, going to be part of the puzzle of how the Parliament works.
James, I'm going to give this last point to you. So when Mr. Poilievre comes out tonight, if he comes out tonight to give a speech, because we know that this count is going to be long, I mean, they could still be counting even when we're off the air. When does that need to start? When does that reaching out need to start? What kind of language do we need to see in here?
I mean, look, we'll see the full composition of Parliament. There are about, I think, 20 or 30 ridings in British Columbia. They're within a couple of hundred votes. There's a 9-seat margin here. Pierre Poilievre's own riding, because of this gimmick that these people had of having 90 names in the ballot, and you have to hand count them. So people are going through these massive scrolls of ballots. Like it's physically a problem. But look, the work starts, I think, now. He's probably on the phone talking to people now and thinking about and analyzing where he wants to be and what he wants to do. And also, I think on a personal basis, we don't talk about this a lot because I think there's a barrier here about about these things and respecting people's privacy. But Pierre Poilievre has a young family. He's been at this for over 21 years. He has had extraordinarily successful results tonight. He's added to the seat counts. He got more votes than Stephen Harper ever got as a percentage of the population of people. And Stephen Harper won 3 governments. Pierre fell short tonight. But there's every reason to believe that Pierre, looking ahead to 2000 in the next campaign, whatever that is, 28 and 29, by then, the NDP will have a new leader. By then, Donald Trump will be gone. By then, Mark Carney will have a track record of successes and failures that he can talk about. The dynamic will be completely different. And if the Conservative Party rallies around Pierre, and Pierre is humble and honest about the shortcomings of this campaign and why he didn't quite get to where he wanted to get, then I think there's every reason why Pierre Poilievre should stay as leader and will have success in the future.
Okay, I'm going to let you sip that coffee while it is still hot, and I'm going to throw it back to Omar and Bashi. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Lots of things to keep our eyes on, just jumping off that point that James was making and Christy before him. I think we're also paying very close attention to what does happen in Pierre Poilievre's riding, because all of what James laid out is true, the increase in the share of the popular vote and popularity for the party writ large. But if Pierre Poilievre ends up having a tough time in his own riding, that may inform the discussion of future leadership in a little bit of a different way. We're looking at some numbers for potential seat changes in Atlantic Canada, where I think the flow of advance votes and the counting of them has swung things back towards the Liberals' way. Todd Battis is with us from Halifax, I believe, and he'll have some more insight on this for us. Todd?
Yeah, hi, Vashi. And we talked a lot about this at the outset of the show when it looked like there were some real positive gains being made by the Conservatives. And then as the night progressed, those numbers seemed to shift a bit. And at the end of it, when you look at the seat change in Atlantic Canada, and we just had the board there, it was the Liberals picking up a seat and the Conservatives losing a seat. Here is a riding that exemplifies that. This is the riding of St. Margaret's South Shore. I think we have it that we can show the details of it. And then this was Conservative Rick Perkins' riding. He was the incumbent, and he lost by a huge amount in the end, with still 1 poll.
They're encouraged by their gains that they've made. They're encouraged by the amount of popular vote that they're getting. But of course, one thing that's hanging in this room is that Pierre Poilievre has not won his seat yet. In fact, he appears to be trailing in his seat. We are hearing that he is set to talk in a few minutes, but they did play the Jamil Jivani interview here at the same time. Obviously, it was on the CBC broadcast, and there was a lot of applause in the room for the things that he was saying. There was a lot of hollering and cheers from the people in this room who feel that Doug Ford's interventions in this campaign were not helpful, and they did not advance the Conservative cause in this very competitive election. So this ongoing rift appears to still be taking place within this party, and we'll be watching to see how it manifests over the next few days.
Okay, Kate McKenna, thank you so much for that. I'm going to now go to Ian Hannah-Mansing, who's got some results. Ian.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at Greater Vancouver and see how the NDP are doing there in terms of seat change, first of all. So we'll put that up on the screen, I hope, or if we don't, then I will, yeah, there we go. So this is vote change in Greater Vancouver, and you see the Liberals.
Conversation tells you something about how motivated the Liberals were, in particular, to score that victory. But I think what we're seeing tonight is like a surprising amount of strength in Ontario and in Atlantic Canada from the Conservatives. Strength that wasn't necessarily picked up in national polling leading up to tonight.
Yeah, Ben, let me bring you in. I mean, what do you make of that strength in Ontario?
Well, I think, like I said earlier tonight, I think part of the modeling that pollsters use is based on previous elections, and this is something we've never seen before. So this will get baked in for the next election, which, based on the numbers that we're seeing, could be 9 to 18 months away. Because I honestly, I have no idea who the Liberals work with in order to get any legislation passed.
Yeah, I mean, it's shaping up to be a pretty late night. We know that the Conservative leader is watching the results as they come in a nearby hotel. We are expecting him to speak in the next half an hour, perhaps a little bit longer. But, when he does speak, Alex, what kind of message do you think we're going to hear from him?
Well, obviously, despite it being a close race and still, they're within striking distance, obviously it's a disappointment. They had a 25-point lead leading into 2025. That evaporated. The fact that the Liberals are leading right now, I mean, if you told me that in December, I wouldn't believe you, which is why I don't make predictions in politics anymore. But obviously he's got to, reassure his party that he's the guy, even in a loss tonight, he's the guy to lead them into the next election, whenever that comes, as Ben mentioned.
And Ben, I guess I'll ask you, how could Mr. Poilievre reassure his party, in the face of this defeat, that he's the man to lead them?
Well, look at the numbers. I mean, the numbers bear it out. Like I said earlier, he's been able to not just keep the base, but grow the base. He's grown the popular support. He's grown the number of seats. We were saying earlier, if he loses his seat, not optimal to make that case, but I think he probably has the right at this point to decide his own fate. But again, this is the Conservative Party. The Conservative movement is famous for not necessarily rewarding a better result. They want the best result. So we'll have to wait and see.
And we'll have to wait and see those results in Carleton. So I'll send it back to you, Donna.
All right, Taria, thank you. Mercedes Stephenson has been listening in, watching all this, along with Senator Pamela Wallin. Over to you two.
Thanks so much, Donna. Pamela, you're an independent senator, but you're a conservative. It was a small seat.
Yes, small seat.
42% of the popular vote nationally. The last time the Conservatives achieved that was under Brian Mulroney 37 years ago in 1988. Growth in new cohorts of supporters in a broader Conservative coalition that includes younger voters than typical, apparently doing very well in communities of new Canadians. And one of the most interesting things, I talked earlier about the sort of blue-collar swing that we seem to be observing towards Conservatives. Conservatives are winning in Windsor, Tecumseh, Windsor West, one of the Sudbury seats. We almost won Hamilton. We're competitive in Hamilton Centre. I've never seen that. These are long-time traditional NDP. So the NDP swing was, as I know it's fashionable around here to refer to the progressive bloc. A lot of traditional NDP voters wouldn't regard themselves as on the left. They're for the little guy. Sure. And Pierre Poilievre has been fighting for the little guy. He's broadened the Conservative coalition in that way. And picked up apparently at least 30 seats. So, and finally, he has been, in my judgment, the most effective opposition leader in our lifetime. Some might say too effective. Such an effective opposition leader that he became typecast as in that role.
Well, and he also got rid of the very things that were going to help him. Justin Trudeau and a carbon tax. I mean, that was his own success brought that to him as well.
More than that, look, I mean, I heard my friend Arif here dismissively referring to Mr. Poilievre's three-word slogans. Look, he created the issue matrix that has been dominating Canadian politics for the past 2 years around affordability, the cost of living, housing, immigration, much of it represented, yes, by the carbon tax. He's also taken some principled and courageous positions. I think he took on the Liberals on their class warfare baiting on the capital gains tax increase. I believe he's the only leader who in French and English pointedly opposed the Quebec Bill 21 law against religious symbols in Quebec?
Did
somebody else?
Don't go there.
No.
He didn't. He actually has fudged whether he would intervene in the Supreme Court on it. So
I heard his clear opposition to it. So my
he
point,
says he's opposed to it, but he doesn't say
But
what
he
he
would
would
do
do
about
about
I
it.
think he ran a substantive campaign. He set up the issue set. He helped to defenestrate Justin Trudeau. And he's got the best result for a conservative leader since 1988.
Okay, and I take all those points, and they're excellent points, and I'm going to let Jagmeet Singh speak in a moment, except that wasn't the bar. The bar was 25 points ahead, and you were going to form government. And you're telling me no one in the party is going to be angry with him?
Oh, there's going to be a desire for sure for a retrospective. And I think any leader, after this circumstance, should show some humility, should take a step back. And I think the important thing is, does a leader have the ability to learn and to grow? I think we've seen him modify his tone, his approach, his issue focus over the past several months. I think that demonstrates such an ability. He'll have to demonstrate that to the party, but I don't see anybody gunning for his job.
Yeah, I'm not saying his leadership's in any trouble, but he needs to reflect on why he's not going to be prime minister tomorrow, because a large part of it was the leadership. The leader was the biggest liability for the party. The strategy that the party pursued, at least for the first part of the campaign, was clearly wrong. He bears responsibility for that. So he should clearly have to answer some questions to the party.
it's also very dangerous to take for granted for both the Liberals and the Conservatives that the NDP weakness in this election is something that will be permanent. On the contrary, I don't know what Mr. Singh is going to say, but at this point, it's not really hard to imagine that it could be stronger with a stronger leader than it has been over the past 3 elections.
Conservatives picked up, leading or elected 6 more. Liberals 4, but look at this, the collapse of the NDP. They are down. Last time, the NDP won 12 seats in BC, half of their whole national total. So they are quite a bit down, including Jagmeet Singh, who is actually in 3rd place in his own riding. So a tough, tough night for the NDPers in BC tonight. Here are some of the ridings where, you know, there's so many ridings that are so close. Sukhman Gill elected in Abbotsford South Langley. He is that 25-year-old Conservative candidate who, not very experienced, but the party picked him over a seasoned veteran MLA, Mike de Jong, but he won there handily. Port Moody, Coquitlam, you've got Paul Lambert. The suburbs, very important to both all the parties. Jeff Kibble, Cowichan, Malahat, the Conservatives leading there. And Aaron Gunn, controversial candidate in the North Island for some of his comments about residential schools. He's leading up there. Chacow, Richmond Centre, Marpole leading, the Conservative leading there. So we're going to keep an eye on a lot of these tight races here in BC. Back to you, Omar Vashi.
All right, Mijong, thank you so much. And I'm being told right now that NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is about to speak in Burnaby. Let's just listen in to see what he has to say.
Thank you. We're good. Thank you. Thank you. That was very nice, very sweet of you all. Thank you so much. You can get me all choked up here, guys. We got to keep it together here, folks. Thank you very much. The love is amazing. I appreciate y'all. Big thank you to Suzanne. She's been with us from the beginning. Huge thank you. Appreciate her so much. Thank you, thank you. And all of you in this room, you guys poured your heart into this. Thank you so much for everything you've done. You're amazing. Love you all. Thank you. And I know in election parties, night parties across the country, people are gathered. I want to thank them all for all their hard work. They're amazing people gathered together across the country. I want to take a moment to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on his victory. He has an important job to do to represent all Canadians and to protect our country and its sovereignty from the threats of Donald Trump. Tonight and every night, all of us here, we're on Team Canada. We want Canada to thrive, and we're going to continue to fight for Canada. I want to congratulate all the other leaders on a hard-fought campaign. It's been the honor of my life to represent the people of Burnaby Central. Tonight they chose... Thank you. Tonight they chose a new member of Parliament, and I wish them well as they continue to work hard for this community. Obviously, I know this night is a disappointing night for New Democrats. We had really good candidates that lost tonight. I know how hard you worked. I spent time with you. You're amazing. I'm so sorry you're not going to be able to represent your communities. I know you're going to continue to fight for them. I know on how many doors you knocked, how many family dinners you missed, how many nights your kids went to bed without you there to tuck them in. I know it was a tough sacrifice, and I just want to thank, and we can give a round of applause to every single candidate that ran for us. Thank you. Thank all those incredible candidates and their incredible teams, because no candidate can do it without a team. The volunteers, the staff, thank you to all those candidates and their incredible staffs. One more time. Choosing to commit your life to politics obviously comes with some sacrifice, but we choose this life because of the chance to change the country we love for the better. We may lose sometimes, and those losses hurt, it's tough. But we are only defeated if we stop fighting. We're only defeated when we believe that those that tell us that we can never dream of a better Canada, a fairer Canada, a more compassionate Canada. I have met New Democrats from coast to coast to coast who will never back down, even when they're told that there's no room for them at the table. We make room for everyone because we believe that there is enough wealth in Canada for all of us to live the life that we deserve. Honestly, I got to avoid making eye contact with certain people because then it's going to get too emotional up here. So I just made the mistake of doing that, so I'm going to look away now. You know who you are. Don't look at me again. Almost 8 years ago, I was elected the leader of this incredible party, this incredible movement. I've worked really hard to be worthy of this trust, to live up to the legacy of our movement. Hold on a sec, I guess. Thank you. One more sec. Tonight, I've been forward a party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed. Now, I could not have done this incredible job without, here's a point, give me a second to break down a bit. I couldn't have done it without the incredible support of my wife, Kitten. She has been my rock. She's been my foundation. For the past couple years, I've been regretting that I didn't thank her on the night of the last election. So this is my opportunity to make up for it. She has literally been my rock. I couldn't have done this without her. She's backed me up and supported me. She has made so many sacrifices. She convinced me that she's enjoyed them all, but I don't know. But she's amazing. I'm just so thankful. Thanks for being on this journey. I'm going to give you a hug. Hold on. Also, I might break down this part because, and Anhad and Dani, my daughters, remind me of the future. God damn it, that we are fighting for. That's just because I get emotional anytime I talk about my kids. I'm very sappy when it comes to my daughters, so I get a little emotional. I've also been supported by my family, and I got to thank my parents who are here today. They're amazing. Love you both. My brother, I wouldn't have been on this journey without my brother. So big shout out to my brother, Kathin. And honestly, this may sound funny, but my in-laws, I literally couldn't have done this without my in-laws. They're amazing. Where are my in-laws? They're somewhere here. Wherever they are, they're here. I wanted to look at them and point at them too. Oh, there they are. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without them. Literally, if you're a parent, you know how important your parents are. And your in-laws too, it turns out. So, huge thank you. They've supported us. They've kept me grounded. Given us great advice. I'm so thankful to my family. You can't do this work without great people, and you can't do this without a great family supporting you. So thank you to my family. I'm spilling my water and everything. It's getting a little bit. I'm trying to be graceful here, folks. I also want to thank my NDP caucus. This is a team that together we brought historic change for people. We brought real change to the lives of Canadians. I know that people are concretely better off because of our work over the last 8 years, and no election result will ever diminish that. So thank you so much. Yeah, my caucus, honestly, I'm so thankful to them all. We did some incredible work together. Seriously, every one of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I might break down this part too. Forgive me if I do. I can only do this, and we can only do this work because of a great staff. And y'all just poured your heart into me, into the work that we did. So. It's a good thing that there's water here. This water is very strategically placed for me, so it's very, very lucky that I have. I might need a couple more glasses, so just if anyone can help me out on that, that'd be great. Y'all brought your talent, your heart to the fight every day. We treat each other with respect and dignity and with kindness, and I love you all. We're almost there, folks. I got a couple other things I really want to get off my chest here. One other thing is, nothing's too spicy. It's just good stuff. I often speak about something my mom taught me. It's a Sikh teaching of Chardi Kala. And this is something fundamental to who I am. And it means, the words break down. Chardi means rising, and Kala means spirits. And it's something that it captures a big part of who I am. And it's the idea that in the fight for justice, in the fight for fairness, in the fight that we fight, we want to have optimism in the face of struggle. We want to have a defiant optimism. It's like this eternal resilience. And this is the spirit that I carry tonight. Obviously, I'm disappointed that we could not win more seats. But I'm not disappointed in our movement. I'm hopeful for our party. I know that we will always choose hope over fear and optimism over despair and unity over hate. New Democrats literally built this country. New Democrats built this country. We have built the best of Canada, and we aren't going anywhere. Thank you so much. Love you all. You're amazing. Merci infiniment. Appreciate it so much. Appreciate you all so much. Thank you. You're amazing. Love you all. Every one of you. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Jagmeet Singh there, giving his wife a hug, an incredibly news-making and poignant speech. Mr. Singh announcing that he will step down as leader of the NDP after failing to retain his own seat or official party status for New Democrats. He says he'll stay on until an interim leader is selected, stopping himself, Omar, a number of times from crying. Clearly a very, very emotional night for Mr. Singh, and a hugely consequential decision for him.
And not a speech that any politician wants to give. I mean, Mr. Singh was humble, he was gracious, he was emotional, talking about the sacrifice that is carrying his daughter right there, talking about the sacrifice that public service takes on a family, especially a young family as he's got. But, you know, regardless of, I think, what political stripes you wear, the fact that you had somebody like him in Canadian politics, that you had somebody like him break historic ground, and really somebody who's living the promise of possibility in this country, right? Inspiring future generations. He talked about inspiring his two young children as well. But, you know, obviously a very difficult showing in his riding, and difficult for him personally. There will be a lot of soul searching that comes from this, and history will decide whether, you know, how effective he was as a leader or not. But the fact that he played the game, the fact that he entered the race and was in it, makes the country better, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. I think to be fair, though, the outcome of this election also determined, you know, is a rendering on his leadership to a certain degree. Obviously, there were a number of other factors at play, but he made the decision to sign on to that agreement with the Liberals. That imparted a certain view of him and his party on a number of Canadians, and then you combine that with Donald Trump, and you're left with, you know, some upsets like the one you're looking at on the screen. We're lucky enough to have Tom Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, in the room with us right now. Tom, I watched you watching that speech. You were glued to...
Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez Mesdames et messieurs, nous allons commencer dans 5 minutes. Veuillez, s'il vous plaît, prendre place. Ladies and gentlemen, we will get ready to start in 5 minutes. If you can please take your seats.
Just get in front of the microphone, go through that very emotional state, while the people that he wanted to thank were all there, physically in front of him, spoke very movingly with his wife, carried his little daughter on his shoulders as he went out, and just said, you know, it's going to take a little while to find an interim leader. It's actually a relatively easy process in the NDP, mostly the caucus involved in that, and they'll live to fight another day. It's been very tough for him this campaign. I think you mentioned one of the key things. I mentioned one before, which was the Conservative attacks on him that might have actually hurt the Conservatives because the NDP vote wasn't there and it all went over Liberal, or a good part of it. And the other part was
difficult times, an enormously difficult thing to do when you've lost.
Totally, yeah.
And so I give him high praise for that. I wasn't certain he would resign tonight, but I did think he would resign.
Yeah,
given the outcome. Now, where, you know, I said earlier, where does the party go from here? Well, we still don't have a majority government here, and even if there are only somewhere between 8 and 12 New Democrats there, they may have a key role to play. And even if there's a small majority, they'll still have a key role to play in all those things that Jagmeet has talked about that are important to ordinary Canadians and
back at your location. No, we're not going to start until the media have moved back to their places. This is not a media space. You guys got to get back. Okay, thank you. No, we have school for that. So you guys.
Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez accueillir chaleureusement Anna Poilevre.
Chers Canadiens, merci. Merci, chers Canadiens. Je vous aime aussi. I love you too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's with profound gratitude that I stand before you today at the moment of this historic election. Because only in Canada could the story that Anna and I bring to the stage be possible. Adopted son of school teachers and a Venezuelan refugee. Stand on this stage in front of our proud country, offering ourselves up to serve for the future. After millions of people have shown up and marked their X, spoken their voice, and exercised their democratic rights. We could not be more proud, we could not be more grateful for the opportunity the Canadians have given us. And speaking now of Anna, I want to take a moment to thank my incredible wife. She's been by my side. She's my rock. I love and cherish you and our little ones more than you'll ever know. And I could not have done any of this without you. Thank you so much. I love you. Now, my message to Canadians. The promise that was made to me and to all of you is that anybody from anywhere could achieve anything, that through hard work, you could get a great life, you could have a nice, affordable home on a safe street. My purpose in politics is and will continue to be to restore that promise. Thank you. To the candidates who ran under our banner as Conservatives, to the volunteers who knocked on the doors, made phone calls, put up lawn signs, rallied at our events, donated their hard-earned money to our cause, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. To the millions of people who voted for the Conservative Party and put their hopes and dreams in our vision, thank you. It will be an honor to continue to fight for you and to be a champion of your cause as we go forward. Ça serait un grand honneur de continuer de me battre pour vous, parce que c'est un honneur d'être votre voix, c'est un honneur de me battre pour les valeurs conservatrices pour lesquelles vous avez voté, et surtout, ça va être un honneur de continuer d'avancer la promesse du Canada, que chacun ici au Canada qui travaille fort peut avoir une belle vie et une belle maison abordable dans une communauté sécuritaire. C'est ça notre vision et on va le ramener chez nous. Merci beaucoup. To my fellow Conservatives, we have much to celebrate tonight. We've gained well over 20 seats. We got the highest share of vote. Our party has received since 1988. We denied the NDP and Liberals enough seats to form a coalition government, meaning and we did all of this in a very difficult environment. That said, we are cognizant of the fact that we didn't quite get over the finish line yet. We know that change is needed, but change is hard to come by. It takes time. It takes work. And that's why we have to learn the lessons of tonight so that we can have an even better result the next time the Canadians decide the future for the country. Canadians have opted for a razor-thin minority government, a virtual tie in the vote count. So I would like to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on leading this minority government. We'll have plenty of opportunity to debate and disagree, but tonight we come together as Canadians. We will do our job. Yes, we will do our job to hold the government to account. But first, we congratulate people from all political backgrounds on participating in the democratic process. And as I said, while we will do our constitutional duty of holding government to account and proposing better alternatives, we will always put Canada first as we stare down tariffs and other irresponsible threats from President Trump. Conservatives will work with the Prime Minister and all parties with the common goal of defending Canada's interests and getting a new trade deal that puts these tariffs behind us while protecting our sovereignty and the Canadian people. I want to thank my Conservative team, my caucus, my members of the Conservative staff and others who've helped reshape the entire political landscape in this country. Conservatives have achieved major breakthroughs tonight. We brought in record support from blue-collar and unionized workers, youth, new Canadians. We gave voices to countless people across this country who've been left out and left behind for far too long. We won the big debates of our time on the carbon tax, on inflation, on housing, on the drug crisis, on crime. Conservatives have been leading the debate, and we will continue to put forward the best arguments to improve the lives of our people right across this country. But we will not stop there. Every single day, our Conservative caucus and I will be holding the government to account on behalf of the millions of Canadians who believed in the message of change. En tant que parti, on a grandement élargi notre soutien et chaque jour, le caucus conservateur et moi allons travailler à Ottawa pour rendre des comptes du gouvernement au nom des millions de Canadiens qui ont décidé de voter pour un vrai changement. J'ai eu l'honneur de parcourir le pays et parler aux milliers de personnes qui ont partagé leurs préoccupations, leurs peines, leurs espoirs. Everywhere I went, hard-working people took precious time out of their day to tell me about their struggles, their pain, their fears, but also their hopes and dreams. Welders and waitresses, farmers and factory workers, seniors, small business owners, and single mothers, young Canadians and young families pleading for the chance to own a home, parents who worried that their kids would never be able to move out of their home, grandparents who saw their grandchildren suffering from the shortfalls of our economy, and countless others who are afraid to go outside because of the rising wave of crime. All of these stories touched my heart and gave me inspiration to work towards something better. These people continue to need voices, and I will continue to fight for them every day, and every day we will never give up on fighting for the Canadian people. Thank you. We hear your stories. We will carry those stories with us into Parliament. We will not forget the people for whom we work and for whom we fight every day. Now, I know that some of you might be disappointed that change did not get over the finish line tonight. Change takes time. Most of all, it requires that we never give up, because our people and our country are worth fighting for. Je vous ai entendu et j'ai apporté vos histoires avec moi tout au long de cette campagne. Et vos histoires vont rester avec moi lorsque je me bats avec mon équipe conservatrice pour vous défendre et pour avancer vos intérêts. À ceux qui ont désespéré besoin de changement, je sais que vous êtes déçus. Le changement est difficile et ça prend du temps. Surtout, ça veut dire qu'on ne peut jamais lâcher. Parce que notre pays et son peuple méritent qu'on se batte pour eux. I will never give up on fighting for everyone who stood with us today and the millions of people who voted for other parties. And so, my message tonight, for the single mother working 2 jobs but still has an empty fridge and an empty bank account, for the young people who despair at never being able to afford a home, for the seniors on fixed incomes whose savings are eroded by inflation and no longer feel safe in their local neighborhood parks, for those who are now living in fear and terror because of crime, for those worried about losing their jobs because of unacceptable tariffs from the United States of America, for all of those who feel left behind and forgotten, my message is one of hope. Change will take time, but we will fight for that change, and we will deliver that change, and we will never give up on fighting for the great Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street protected by our brave troops under our proud flag. Canada first, Canada always. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much, Canada. Merci beaucoup.